Witness admits he lied on the stand in a grisly kidnapping case.
For the first time tonight, you're going to see a startling tape. Could it free a man who's now behind bars? 2020 begins right now.
Somebody has my daughter. They have kidnapped her. Please get everybody in the community out there.
Everybody trying to say, it's okay, Karen, this is all just a mistake. But see, they didn't know what I knew that morning.
Nursing student Holly Bobo.
Last seen being dragged away from her home by a man in camouflage.
He said, stop, 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 leave me alone, stop. But she never called out his name.
Just hours after Holly Bobo disappeared, more than 400 people turned up here to search these woods.
Holly, I love you so much. Please try to get home to us.
I just remember it was madness. Cops everywhere, helicopters flying. It was already crazy.
We were looking at everybody. Everybody was looked at.
When did someone kind of pull away from the rest?
He said if somebody like him had got Holly, she's just a toy to him. And it's all fantasy world.
Dennis Benjamin says, there's a man on my porch who has just confessed to the kidnapping of Holly Bobo.
Do you think the jury got this one wrong?
Absolutely. Yep. Innocent people are in prison.
Please help us find her.
This is the Tennessee River. On its western bank is Decatur County, a patchwork of sparsely populated farms, dense woods, and neighbors who look out for each other.
It's a rural county with a cute little small town, Parsons. Very close to the Tennessee River.
A lot of cattle farming and crop farming.
Hunting, fishing, boating.
People that like to live out in the country, they have some animals or some horses.
There's not a lot of industry in Decatur County.
I started to say it might be compared to Mayberry, but it's nothing like that. We do have crime just like every other town in America, but we are rural. Everybody pretty much knows everybody. Everybody knew Holly and her family.
20-year-old Holly Bobo came from a loving family. She lived with her mother, Karen, father, Dana, and her older brother, 25-year-old Clint, in a home her dad built with his own hands.
It was your typical little single story, 3 bedrooms, kitchen was in the middle kind of, and then a little small living room. And they had a carport there, which is a 2-car carport to the back of the house.
They're typical middle-class, hard-working country folks. Holly's dad, he had an excavating business, and her mother was a school teacher.
Holly and I were very close, and we were about 5 years apart.
Holly was raised like my little sister, and Clint was like my little brother. We were always growing up together. We just lived in our own world, 2 kids in college. We had our church family, our family gatherings, went to the movies together, rode 4-wheelers together, rode horses.
The Bobo kids grew up with a sense of caring for their community. Clint is studying to become a social worker, and Holly is attending nursing school.
They're the best people on earth. That's what hurt so bad, that this happened to them. They didn't do anything that would have put them in harm's way of having this to happen. It just doesn't happen to people like them.
It was just a normal morning like anything else. Dana gets up first and gets ready.
Well, I usually go out and feed the dog.
Dana says Holly is already up, studying for a big test later that day.
I asked her if she needed any money, I think, for gas or whatever that day. She said, yeah, and I left her some money on the bar. I left out my regular time, 5:30 or something like that, and went on to work.
Karen wakes up a short time later.
So I went on about my business, getting ready. I'd packed her lunch like I always did. She was sitting at the kitchen table studying, and I kissed her goodbye and told her I loved her, just like every other morning. And I left.
Around 7:45, a neighbor was getting ready to go to work. He heard a scream from next door.
She said, stop, 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 leave me alone, stop. But she never called out his name.
It made such an impression on him. He told his mother that he heard somebody screaming over at the Bobo's house.
That neighbor calls Karen Bobo at work, worried, saying, "We heard a scream coming from your house."
That's just not a call you get every day, so I instantly knew something was wrong.
Holly's brother Clint, who is asleep in the house, doesn't hear the scream, but he wakes up to the family dog, Rascal, barking.
He just continued to bark, so I decided to get up, to see what he was barking at. As I was approaching that window, I heard people talking, voices. I could tell it was a male and a female voice. I never was able to really tell what they were saying.
There's a side window next to the kitchen that faces the carport, which of course is an open carport.
Clint looks into the carport. He sees Holly and another person kneeled down in a catcher stance.
So I could see enough to tell that it was Holly and a man in camouflage who I identified as Drew, who is her boyfriend.
At first he thought it was Holly and her boyfriend and they were arguing. He didn't want to get involved in it, so he stepped away and let them do whatever they were doing. At that point, he sent his mom a text and asked, "Does Holly not have school today?"
And I said, well, her and Drew are out here in the garage. I expected Drew to be dressed in camouflage because Drew and I had talked the night before, and he told me he was going turkey hunting that morning.
But there were some things that Clint didn't know that his mother knew. Drew was at least 30 minutes drive away.
Drew was hunting on my mom's property in southern Decatur County.
Right away, her instincts told her that's terribly wrong.
I would say like 20 seconds later, I received a phone call from her. She says, call all the neighbors. Oh my God, Clint, that's not Drew.
I said, that's not Drew. Get a gun and shoot him.
Miss Karen is saying, "Shoot him, get your gun and shoot him." He's like, what are you talking about? You want me to shoot Drew? He just woke up. He wasn't comprehending everything that was going on.
And I said, so you want me to shoot Drew? And I think that's when she must have hung the phone up.
I just hung up, and I collapsed to the floor.
He said he went and got his gun, and he looked out the back window of the kitchen, and he saw that Holly was walking with a man in camouflage.
At that point is when I could see them. They were walking towards the woods, and there's a trail that Holly and I are both very familiar with. That trail leads you to a logging road. And they looked like they were walking right toward that trail. She was walking on her own. She didn't appear to be hurt, and still thinking it's Drew. And I'm watching them as they're walking toward this trail.
As Clint Bobo is watching his sister Holly and this man in camouflage disappear into the woods, back at work, Karen Bobo knows something is really wrong.
And everybody trying to say, it's okay, Karen, this is all just a mistake. But see, they didn't know what I knew that morning. It couldn't be Drew, and that the neighbor had heard a scream. And so my friend, she grabbed my hand, pulled me up, and we headed out of the building. She hands me her phone.
911, what's your emergency?
Somebody has my daughter. They have kidnapped her. And somebody in full camouflage got Holly. Please get everybody in the community out there.
They're on their way, sweetie. I got everybody on their way right now already.
Oh, my God.
In the hours and days that follow, thousands of people will come to this small town, all asking the same question. Where is Holly Bobo? A quiet spring morning in the country interrupted by a scream. Then, a deafening silence. 20-year-old Holly Bobo vanished from her own backyard, and her family is in anguish.
Holly was an absolute joy from the day she was born. It just seemed like there was something special about her. She was always kind to people and appreciated the small things in life.
Holly's mother says she shares a special bond with her only daughter.
We could finish each other's sentences. We enjoyed doing the same things, riding horses, listening to the radio.
Holly's cousin, country singer Whitney Duncan, says music has always been a passion for Holly.
We had singing in common for sure, and she had a beautiful voice. Peace in the Valley was her favorite gospel song. I have that clip and go back and watch it.
Following graduation from high school, Holly has her eye on the future, studying hard to become a nurse.
Holly and I ended up in the same nursing class in Parsons, and so I really got to know her. She was very committed to the program. You could just tell. She studied continuously. On the day that she went missing, we got to class, and we're supposed to take a test the first thing. The instructor went out and came back, and she announced that something terrible had happened. And so we immediately dispersed, went to the area, started searching.
When tragedy strikes, Decatur County comes together. On April 13, 2011, just hours after Holly Bobo disappeared, more than 400 people turned up here to search these woods, trying to help find any clue as to what happened to the 20-year-old nursing student.
The search response was almost immediate. By 8:30, half the neighborhood was out there.
I've seen 800 people out here today.
These guys here is going to be the team leaders.
Group 1 is this, so it'd be group 2 that's down here.
By 10, half the county was there.
Holly, I love you so much. Please try to get home to us. And if anybody knows anything about her, please help us find her.
So when you first get there on the scene, what was it like there?
Everybody was involved trying to determine what happened to Holly Bobo. It was just a chaotic scene of following leads with hundreds of people involved.
Just anybody that can help, just come on and help us, please.
You know, Tennessee's known as the volunteer state, and that's what happened. Just about every county in half of Tennessee was there, from Memphis to beyond Nashville.
If you see anything that is not right, call me.
There are people on horseback, ATVs.
There were posters on telephone poles. There were posters throughout the county.
Pink ribbons and pictures of Holly Bobo are posted all over the small, tight-knit community of Parsons.
So it becomes a pretty big story right away.
Is everybody ready?
It grew exponentially.
We want to just bring everybody up to speed.
When the days went on and there was no more signs of Holly.
Got a lot of ground left to cover still.
First, you had the local stations.
It's been almost a week since Holly was last seen outside her family's home.
From Jackson, from Decatur County, from Nashville and Memphis coming in. And then you had the national people coming in.
And now we have the latest on the desperate hunt for Tennessee nursing student Holly Bobo.
Last seen being dragged away from her home by a man in camouflage.
We're going to begin with the urgent search for a young woman gone missing.
In addition to thousands of volunteers, law enforcement from across the country came to tiny Parsons to help in the search.
Decatur County Sheriff's Office, who responds with multiple deputies. They called in the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. The TBI came in with dozens of agents. They called in the U.S. Marshals and the FBI.
This was the biggest investigation in the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation history. That almost every agent in the whole Tennessee Bureau had some type of involvement in it.
This is where our virtual command center is. We've really been concentrating from Holly's house north up to I-40.
We're talking about a distance of about 8 miles?
Yes.
They brought in bloodhounds and so forth, and they tracked a set towards that bigger pond. They had divers, and they walked that pond, and they looked and they didn't find anything.
There were several times I took agents out in my patrol boat and looked at places on the river.
So I just remember it was madness. Cops everywhere, helicopters flying. It was already crazy. And for me, it was just surreal.
I just want her back.
Thank you.
While authorities focus on the search, the crime scene itself reveals very little in the way of physical evidence. A footprint and spots of blood in the carport where Clint last saw his sister.
There's 2 little steps that go into the carport. Her Mustang was parked in the first slot, and the blood was found right in front of it. One of them was about the size of a fist. The other ones were much smaller, maybe a quarter-sized or dime-sized.
And it was determined to be hers. The discovery of the blood obviously is disheartening. It indicates she's at least injured. She was at least bleeding when she was taken away.
The working theory? Whoever took Holly had to be familiar with the area and know the Bobo schedule.
We feel that she knew that she was in fear of her life, so she was complying with his command.
It might have been somebody close, somebody that kind of knew our routine, or when I left, when she left, and when my daughter left to go to school.
In our minds, besides the very few people we were the closest to, anybody could have been a suspect.
As the list of possible suspects grows, authorities begin to wonder if the abductor could be even closer to home than the Bobos realize.
There were a lot of people that felt them telling the truth would be the secret to solving this case.
It's been almost a week since Holly was last seen.
20-year-old nursing student who reportedly was abducted from her home a week ago today.
Abducted from her home 6 days ago.
Weeks after 20-year-old Holly Bobo is abducted from her home, investigators still don't know who took her. But thanks to cell phone tracking technology, they say they know where she was taken. So you mapped out where you thought her cell phone went?
Yes.
So where do you think her phone went as she was leaving her home?
It went straight north.
Can we look at the map?
Absolutely. Okay. So they go north, about 32, 33 miles an hour, the red dotted area, and then it travels this way.
Volunteers searching along the mapped out route find some of Holly's personal items, including her cell phone.
We were going down the side of the road on each side of Highway 641, just kind of in the ditches, walking elbow to elbow. We found the phone there.
They found her notebook, they found her lunchbox, they found her school papers, and that essentially followed the same path of the GPS tracking of her cell phone.
It's confirmation they are looking in the right place, but that doesn't make the search any easier.
The massive investigation has turned up nearly 300 new leads, but still no Holly. Volunteers say they don't plan on stopping until she is found.
It's just unbearable. I can't hardly imagine.
We are those people. We became those people that no one ever wants to be.
The Bobos are living a nightmare, and it's only about to get worse. Once viewed as victims, they're now being viewed as suspects.
Did she know her alleged abductor?
Yes, there were a lot of people that felt Clint was lying, felt very strongly that Clint was lying, and that Clint telling the truth would be the secret to solving this case.
I've heard countless times if I would have been that, I mean, I'm talking, sometimes people said this to my face, you know, if I had been that brother, I would have went out there, you know, I would have done something. They just don't understand the way that this event played out.
The TBI, the FBI, and the U.S. Marshals interviewed Clint Bobo multiple times over several weeks, asking him over and over what he knows about his sister's disappearance.
Just question after question after question, and detail after detail, you know, just trying to pull any information they could out of me, which I understand is what they're supposed to do. I just wanted to be as helpful as I could, but I was willing to do whatever they asked me to do.
I interviewed Clint Bobo on several occasions, sometimes several hours at a time I spent with him, and I never, ever had Clint Bobo dishonest. I found him very trustworthy, and he never changed his story of what happened.
Clint's cell phone data backs up his story. he never left the Bobo home that morning.
The cell phone data, Holly was moving the whole time Clint's been here. The police were there at 8:10, and Holly's cell phone moved for another hour and 15 minutes. Clint couldn't have been involved in moving, or somebody else would have had to have been involved too.
I just wish I had known more. I wish I had known that the neighbor called Mom at school. I wished I had known that the neighbor heard a scream. I wished I had known that Drew was turkey hunting. I didn't have the information that I needed.
It will take several years, but Clint is eventually cleared, as are all the Bobo family members and Holly's boyfriend, Drew Scott. Meanwhile, as the investigation is seemingly going nowhere, the Bobo family is increasingly frustrated.
Until your child is found or you know what happened to them, I don't think anyone could ever do enough in a parent's eyes.
There was all kinds of leads coming in. We were looking at everybody. Everybody was looked at.
When did someone kind of pull away from the rest?
There was a point in the investigation to where the FBI agent and Dicus, the TBI agent, come up with a suspect.
And who was that guy?
Terry Britt.
He spent the majority of his life in prison for kidnapping and rape.
He was on that list of local people that were sexual predators. And of course, we ran his name. And Terry Britt, right away, he fit the description that Clint gave. He was about 5'10", 11.
I estimated him to be about 5'10" and about 200 pounds. I guess it was just assumed, that he had black hair or dark brown. It just kind of blended in with his camouflage clothing.
Terry Britt fits the description. He knows the routes. He lives at the end of the route where stuff was thrown out. And he has a strong history in this kind of behavior.
According to Terry Dicus, Terry Britt did have, for lack of a better term, a type. He liked pretty blonde, blue-eyed girls, and Holly fit that type.
Agent Dicus wants to talk to Britt, and he has no trouble tracking him down. Britt is locked up on another charge. Dicus records the conversation with him.
How you doing?
Getting in there. While Britt says he has an alibi and denies having anything to do with Holly Bobo's abduction, he spoke hypothetically about who may have done it and why.
He said if somebody like him had got Holly, she's just a toy to him, and it's all fantasy world.
She's young, pretty, perfect, somewhat body.
Yeah.
Okay, like a toy, some people would think. See, this man, when he goes and gets this female, then he's going to go snatch her up. He can't wait to get her to wherever he's going to take her to, because he's wanting that body.
He's living in this fantasy. He's got this perfect girl, and he's got to get to that body as quick as he can. But as soon as he gets done, now reality sinks in.
Well, here comes reality. Now I've got a body. What am I going to do with it? Because if you keep it, you got to feed it.
Right.
You got to hide it. It ain't going to happen. And if you kill it, what you going to do with it? I mean, there's no way.
The first time I interviewed him, I was like, oh my God, this guy did it. This guy did it.
But the Bobo investigation is about to take a turn.
I've been hearing about these guys.
In the investigation, they were brought up early and often.
Is a new prime suspect about to take center stage?
He would tell people, you're going to end up in a hole just like Holly.
Months into their investigation, no arrests have been made, but TBI agent Terry Dicus is convinced he has his guy.
We conducted 1,000 interviews. We looked at 5 counties around. Terry Britt's the one. It's either this guy or we have no idea who. There were some disagreements, some very heated disagreements at the TBI. It was just the argument, you don't have enough proof for it. You can't prove that he did it. That's what I was faced with, and I was taken off the investigation.
With new TBI agents now taking the lead, they clear Terry Britt and go back to sifting through all those tips that have been gathered over the years.
As investigators dig into this case, a variety of possible suspects emerge, but one group of men well known to law enforcement becomes the focus of their investigation.
I've been hearing about these guys, that people are saying that they're into all kinds of things, stealing things.
They were friends, 4 guys, Zach Adams, Dylan Adams, Jason Autry, and Shane Austin. All 4 were suspects separately.
Zach had criminal histories. Dylan had drug charges. Jason Autry had a history of theft and drug charges. Shane Austin admittedly had a drug problem. They all had that common link of having a criminal past.
Tell me about your son, Shane.
He was just the life of the party. He was just a fun person to be around. But he had a problem.
Between his 9th and 10th grade year of high school, he dislocated his shoulder playing football. I think the opioid stuff started after his first surgery. He wanted to not be addicted to drugs. He tried not to be addicted to drugs for a long time.
Jimmy and Rita Austin had given Shane a place to live, a little trailer to live in that was down the road from their family home.
Their last names all started with A, and the locals referred to them as the A train. They were known for getting in trouble.
In the investigation, they were brought up early and often by people that know that they're into drugs. Zach would tell people, you're going to end up in a hole just like Holly. Comments everywhere that normal people would not make.
And in the early days of the investigation, Holly's mother, Karen, thought these guys could know something, given what they had been heard saying around town. So she tracked them down herself.
I asked them, did they know anything about our daughter's abduction? Of course, they all denied it.
She was kind of doing her own investigation. I mean, she came here and asked to talk to Shane.
I guess I would have fought Goliath. You know, I just had no fear. I was trying to find my daughter.
And at the time of Holly's abduction, witnesses tell investigators that before she went missing, Shane Austin crossed paths with her at a local raccoon hunting festival.
The story was that Shane had seen Holly Bobo at the coon hunt and that he'd kind of followed her around like a stalker.
Did you hear anything about that?
I guess we heard that rumor. We heard that he was trying to take a picture of her and pretending like he was talking on the phone. But now Shane only had a flip phone, so I don't think you could hold that flip phone up to your head and take a picture of somebody, but that's what we heard.
Investigators followed up on this story. Within a week of Holly's disappearance, they showed up at the Austins' property wanting to speak with Shane.
They come and brought the dogs and come down and search Shane's trailer, and that was the start of it.
Throughout their investigation, authorities say they never found evidence at the Austins' property that connected him to Holly Bobo.
Were you surprised that they were down there?
Yes. I mean, I know Shane had drug issues, and that's what I told the TBI guy when he come to the gate down there. And I said, hey, if she'd been made of morphine, I'd said you come to the right place. But no way.
And then, 2 years later, with those new agents on the case, authorities zeroed back in on the Adams brothers, Jason Autry and Shane Austin.
At what point did you realize that he might be in trouble with all of this?
When they come back at 6 o'clock in the morning and tooting the horn, so we went down and opened the gate and let them in, and they said, we're down here to get this over with, so we want Shane.
That's when they wanted to know where the body was at. The TBI met with Shane and they got that immunity deal.
Investigators offered Shane immunity to cooperate and tell them what he knew about his friend's involvement in Holly Bobo's abduction.
You take an immunity deal, hey, you've done something. You've done something. But the lawyer said, if you don't do it, they're going to arrest him. They've done told me they're going to arrest him. And he said, it's going to cost thousands of dollars. So us three, we talked and we agreed. And
we talked hard.
We talked
hard. If you got any part of this, you better be telling it.
Shane Austin had nothing at all to do with this.
So Shane Austin takes the deal, but when he sits down with investigators, they're disappointed.
They was very unhappy because he didn't know where the body was at.
According to authorities, all he can tell them is that he too has heard Zach Adams make incriminating comments about what happened to Holly.
There was talk that Zach had blurted out, "I'm going to do you like I did to Holly."
But Shane also said that he didn't believe that Zach was telling the truth. He thought that Zach was just boasting.
But investigators believe Shane knows more than he's telling, and they revoke that immunity deal.
I'm scared for my son. If the TBI wasn't here, they was calling him, harassing him. So we didn't have any peace.
I don't know if it was them calling him or whatever, but anyway, his drug use just escalated, and that's from that. So, and Christmas was the last time we seen him.
Shane's parents say his life continued to spiral, and in 2015, he died by suicide.
Shane opened that door to addiction. It just grabbed him and pulled him in, and this time it pulled him in for real. Wasn't gonna let him go.
Authorities have lost one cooperating witness, but they're about to get a new one.
Tell the truth. You ain't gonna be spared to nobody now. Ain't no reason to be spared to nobody.
Could what he has to say finally explain what happened to Holly Bobo? More than 2 years after Holly Bobo disappeared, investigators are still searching for answers. Rumors about 4 local small-time criminals, Zach Adams, his brother Dylan Adams, Jason Autry, and Shane Austin, have failed to lead to any hard evidence. But in 2014, investigators catch a break when Dylan Adams is arrested on unrelated gun charges.
When he was arrested this time, it was big. This guy that he had been hanging with was a convicted felon, and they had a couple guns on them and drugs. So he got in trouble for having the firearms around a felon.
They had him in a federal holding facility up in northwestern Tennessee.
While Dylan Adams is incarcerated on these gun charges, investigators speak with him at least 6 times over 8 months, and he seems to implicate his brother Zach and Jason Autry in the kidnapping and murder of Holly Bobo.
I had to go through the TBI to make sure my son was still alive, still safe, and each time that I spoke with him, there was no indication that he was being interrogated. He has no concept of what is really going on.
Dylan's family says he has intellectual disabilities.
Dylan was slow. He really was.
Dylan would have a hard time completing a simple task. Maybe a little slow in reading, comprehending, things like that.
According to court documents, Dylan eventually pleads guilty to lesser federal charges and is released, but not into the custody of his mother. In fact, she says she couldn't even see him because of the conditions of his release.
I was told that I would not be able to contact him, or he would not be able to contact me. I think safe house was the word that they used, because Dylan was their key witness and he had to be protected. I had no idea where he was going.
As it turns out, prosecutors arranged for Dylan Adams to be released into the custody of a private citizen and former Memphis police officer named Dennis Benjamin.
Dennis Benjamin takes him back to his house for several weeks.
Is this normal for someone to be released into the custody of someone that they don't know that's a law enforcement person?
It's real strange. That's for sure.
We reached out to the prosecutor in that case about Dennis Benjamin's involvement, and they would not comment.
And while Dylan Adams is there, a huge break in the case, the moment the Bobo family had been dreading for years.
The 3-year and 5-month search for Holly had come to an end. 2 men searching for ginseng found her remains Sunday morning off a Country Corner road in Holiday.
Holly's skull was found with a single gunshot. Among the remains, some of her schoolwork, her sandals, and her promise ring from her boyfriend, Drew Scott.
It was just a miracle she was found. Because to this day, as broken as my heart is so broken for those people that still don't have that, because I don't think I could have kept going.
And just weeks later, the Decatur County Sheriff's Office receives a shocking phone call. The caller is Dennis Benjamin, telling them that Dylan Adams, still in his custody, has just confessed to taking part in the kidnapping and murder of Holly Bobo.
Just have your seat right there if you don't mind.
Dylan Adams is brought in to speak with TBI agents, and through halting one-word answers, he tells them that he, Zach Adams, Jason Autry, and Shane Austin committed the crime together.
You came forward to Dennis and told him some things that are above and beyond what you've ever told me or Brent about this case, right? Yes. Okay. Describe what was she doing, what did she look like, what was she wearing, she had long pants on, pink shirt, very fat. Remember that? Okay.
Dylan says that all 4 men sexually assaulted Holly at Zach's house.
And now you're saying that Shane Austin is sitting there. You're sitting there. Jason Autry is sitting there. And Zach. Is there anybody else involved? Was Holly Bobo kidnapped? Was she raped? Raped by you?
I just see someone being bullied into saying something they didn't do. I think that he was just trying to get through it.
You withheld information. That ain't how this works.
He was in a federal holding facility for almost 2 years. The TBI agents there pounded him, and he never, ever once said, I raped Holly. And then he's moved to this Dennis Benjamin's house, and suddenly he's raped Holly.
We attempted to contact Dennis Benjamin, but we were unable to reach him.
She was shot in the back of the head. How did that happen? How much blood was on the floor? What was ever done to clean that up? As far as I know, just the rag. Off the head, I don't know.
Armed with Dylan's confession and a search warrant, investigators go to Zach Adams' house looking for any physical evidence to corroborate his story.
They come to the door there and asked me, said, you want to unlock it or you want us to tear the door down? And they knocked a hole in it to see what was back there, I reckon. Tore the fan down as they was tearing the floor out. They used my pick and things to tear this out with, but they cut it out with a saw.
And the story was raping her and attacking her in the house. Well, they pulled up floorboards, they DNA tested all the couch and the bed and everything, never found nothing.
We reached out to the TBI and they declined to answer specific questions about this case.
In my heart of hearts, I know my boys, they're drug addicts. They're not murderers.
But despite a lack of evidence, authorities believe that's exactly what they are. Zach Adams, Jason Autry, and Dylan Adams are eventually all indicted for murder.
Decatur County Grand Jury handed down indictment of especially aggravated kidnapping and first-degree felony murder.
With all 3 heading to trial, the state announces that it will seek the death penalty, and Jason Autry proclaims his innocence to anyone who will listen.
Innocent man falsely accused.
And tonight, for the first time, you'll hear from Zach Adams in his own words.
I have no need to lie.
And the brand new development that Adams hopes may finally exonerate him.
If you go play with him, you might as well go all the way.
All right, we're ready to continue.
A nursing student who was last seen being dragged away from her home by a man in camouflage.
Holly, I love you so much.
The Bobos are living a nightmare, and it's only about to get worse.
I know that my daughter begged for her life. Look at me, please. You have shown absolutely no remorse.
But is she saying that to someone who's innocent? Why do you think you guys became suspects in this case? There were a lot of people at your trial that testified that you had made comments and that you had killed Holly Bobo.
I don't think they're capable of kidnapping a woman and keeping it secret for 2 years. I don't think they're capable of doing arithmetic.
Raise your right hand, please.
Did a key witness lie on the stand?
He said, I need you to help me bury this body. He said, that's Holly Bobo.
Now, video never seen before of that same crucial witness
If you go play with it, you might as well go all the way.
changing his story.
So we went all the way.
What does he tell you?
Tells me he made the whole thing up.
Why would someone admit to killing someone if they didn't do it?
Circuit Court, Hardin County, Tennessee is now in session pursuant to adjournment. The Honorable C. Creed McGinley presiding. God bless the United States, the state of Tennessee, the county of Hardin, and this honorable court. You may be seated.
It's been 6 years since Holly Bobo was taken. 6 years since she died. Everybody, judge, jury, prosecution, defense, gathered inside this courthouse. It's September, but it's stuffy. The jurors are sweating, people fanning themselves in the Tennessee heat, and no one has a hotter seat than the defendant, Zach Adams.
He's charged with kidnapping, murdering, and raping Holly Bobo.
He could face the death penalty if convicted.
In this case, State of Tennessee versus Zachary Bryant Adams. State ready to proceed.
We are, Your Honor.
Defendant ready to proceed.
Yes, sir.
Zach Adams has put on a suit and a lot of weight. He is the only defendant in this trial. His friend Shane Austin died by suicide. Co-defendants Jason Autry and Dylan Adams expected to stand trial later.
Zach was the one that the state of Tennessee thought was the most culpable, so they chose to try him first.
Hello, this is a prepaid call from an inmate at the Tennessee Department of Corrections.
Hello.
Hey, Zach, this is Eva. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
Adams does not testify, but years later, he tells us his story in his first interview ever. What do you say to all those people who think you're guilty?
Where's the evidence? There's not one single piece of evidence.
Did you think you were going to get off?
Well, I knew I was innocent. When you're innocent, it doesn't matter. You're thinking, yeah, of course you're thinking you're going to come home because you're innocent.
You took her, you raped her, killed her, you covered it up, you bragged about it, and you almost got away with it, but you didn't. Because we're here.
No. He did not murder Holly Lynn Bobo. He did not kidnap Holly Lynn Bobo. He did not abduct Holly Lynn Bobo. He did not rape Holly. And do you remember?
Karen Bobo knew the man, now accused of killing her daughter, when he was just a boy.
Did you know Zach Adams? I had Zach in the 4th grade. I was his 4th grade school teacher.
The very first day, you have Holly's mother basically fall out on the stand during her testimony.
Take just a minute, I'm feeling sick.
Let's take a recess. I want everyone to remain with me while the jury files out, please. Got a nurse.
Holly's father also testifies.
What day did you give up hope for the very first time?
About 3 years into it, give or take.
The TBI come to our house, told us that was Holly, that Holly had been found. That was her remains.
I'm going to ask you to look at this picture. You recognize it?
Prosecutors produced the alleged murder weapon. It's a .32 caliber revolver witnesses claim was owned by Zach Adams' friend, Shane Austin, and it was recovered in a drainage ditch just months before the trial.
We located a metal object that was later identified as a revolver.
A parade of no fewer than 9 witnesses testify that over the years, Adams, often while on drugs or in jail, made incriminating statements.
He said, "I'll kill you like I did Holly Bobo."
He made the comment, "I couldn't have picked a prettier bitch."
He just had a couple of his friends, they got drunk and they went into the woods with this girl, and then he was like, I was there for the worst of it. And I was like, "Well, did you do it?" And he was like, I was there for the worst of it, and he just left it like that.
Somebody that would brag about that, my God, that's the devil's work. You don't do that.
Did you say those things?
My life used to revolve around drugs and selling drugs and stuff. So if I could get people intimidated or make them think that, fear me or whatever. So I said things that I shouldn't have said, but I never directly said I did this to Holly.
The prosecution and defense each call a cell phone expert. Both agree Adams and the other suspects' phones did not hit cell towers near the Bobo home at the time Holly was taken.
At the time of this abduction, do we have any idea where Zach Adams' phone is, where Shane Austin's phone is, where Dylan Adams' phone is, or where Jason Autry's phone is?
No.
The prosecution expert says it's possible Holly and Zach Adams' phones were in the same general locations later that morning, but the defense expert disagrees.
In very general terms, the devices were not together at the same location at the same time during that morning.
Did you kill Holly Bobo?
Absolutely not.
Why do you think you guys became suspects in this case?
We didn't have a hard alibi, and we was local, drug users and stuff, and would it matter putting us away? I felt like they had to arrest somebody, even if it was the wrong person, which it was.
As the trial continues, astonishing testimony. A witness you might think would be the last person to believe Adams is innocent.
I looked at Zach personally a total of 2 or 3 times. Whenever the last one was over with, I stopped looking at him.
And a stunning courtroom appearance. That former suspect with a theory of what Holly's killer was thinking.
You gotta hide it, and if you kill it, what you gonna do with it?
Terry Britt, the man investigators say they cleared, is about to take the stand.
All right, we're ready to continue. Defense ready to proceed? Yes, State ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
All right, call your next.
Terry Dykes.
The prosecution of Zach Adams for the murder of Holly Bobo, not surprisingly, features plenty of law enforcement witnesses. That's standard.
What is unusual, the defense calls 6 current and former law enforcement witnesses, including the TBI's very own former lead investigator, Terry Dykes.
The determination I made is that he could not have been involved in the kidnapping.
Is it really unusual for law enforcement?
Absolutely, it's unusual. I've never testified for the defense. No, it doesn't happen. Law enforcement guys don't come forward for the defense.
I was wasting my time.
Wasting your time doing what?
Investigating these idiots.
Can you be more specific about these idiots?
Jason Autry, Zach Adams, and Shane Austin, and Dylan Adams. I don't think they're capable of kidnapping a woman and keeping it secret for 2 years. I don't think they're capable of that. I don't think they're capable of doing arithmetic, much less this.
In August of 2012, Terry Dykes had a new supervisor come in, and that supervisor looked at the leads and looked at the way that Terry Dykes was doing that investigation.
Case agent on the case needed to be benched.
Why was he benched?
In my opinion, based on statements he made as well as statements other agents made to me, he had lost his objectivity. He had tunnel vision on a particular suspect and was not objective about all of the facts coming into the case.
I've weighed the information that I had at the time, and I believe I'm objective.
To have the lead case agent who was removed from the case to take the stand and still saying during a murder trial that he still doesn't think that Zach Adams is guilty of this, that's something that's very hard to hear.
Dykes admits he does not know what evidence investigators gathered against Zach Adams and the others after he left.
But you can't tell us anything about the 3 and 4 years after that.
You're right. I don't know what y'all have done since then.
In a murder trial, it's usually the prosecutors pointing fingers, but in this case, the defense attorneys took a turn. They argue Zach Adams is the wrong guy. Somebody else kidnapped and murdered Holly Bobo. That guy, Terry Britt. And you don't have to go far to find him. He's sitting right up there on the witness stand.
Terry Britt, T-E-R-Y-B-R-I-T-T.
Terry Britt was a registered sex offender who lived fairly close to the Bobo home. He lived also very, very close to where some of her property was found later on during the search.
Would you tell the jury what you're currently incarcerated for?
Kidnapping, attempted rape.
Do you have other convictions in your history?
Yes, ma'am. Had a rape charge and a robbery charge.
I got on to him because, number one, he is the exact size of what our witness said the abductor looked like. Okay? His history tells me he's capable of kidnapping her.
Do you remember Terry Dykes coming out to talk to you about the disappearance of Holly Bobo multiple times?
Oh, yeah, we all know Dykes, don't we?
Britt's history of rape, kidnapping, and firearms convictions made him such a strong suspect, the TBI got a subpoena to bug his home.
Were you aware that for the first time in the state of Tennessee, they had actually bugged your house?
No, ma'am.
But that extraordinary scrutiny of Britt yields no evidence to warrant an arrest, and he says he has an alibi.
Your wife, Janet Britt, was with you the entire day.
The entire day.
You were never apart from one another.
Never.
I checked his alibi and found out it was garbage.
Why did you think the alibi was garbage?
His cell phone called Janet's cell phone and talked to it for 2 minutes and 56 seconds. His alibi is not true. It's fabricated.
Okay.
Nevertheless, the Brits insist they were together the whole time and their alibi is legitimate.
Terry Dykes called me to go interview Terry Britt, and all Dykes wanted to know was if he is interested in talking about Holly Bobo and working out some kind of deal.
U.S. Marshal John Walker says he visits Britt, who is in prison on an unrelated charge, and lays out how he believed Britt committed the crime.
I said, I know you're a sociopath, I know you have issues with women, and I walked him through what we knew. He interrupted me and looked at me very, very straightforward and said, sounds like you've had it all figured out. I'll plead to it and you can close the case.
Do you remember at one time offering to plead guilty to the murder of Holly Bobo if you could get a 20-year sentence?
No.
So you're saying that is not...
I'm saying that's a lie.
When I got up to leave, he stood up behind me and he said, if I need to show you something, how long will it take you to get me out of here? He wanted to take me and show me where the remains were at.
And did you relate all of this information to the TBI?
Yes, I did.
And as far as you know, did the TBI go back to follow up with an interview?
They didn't follow up the next few days like I told him that they were probably going to do. That did not happen.
Okay.
Well, I thought the next day they'd get the confession from him and find her remains. And then nothing happened. And I'm like, what do you mean nothing happened?
We asked the TBI about this. A spokesperson said because of the ongoing legal processes, they are not able to answer specific questions, but they remain confident in the investigation.
Did you have anything to do? Anything at all?
No, I did not.
With the abduction of Holly Bobo?
No, I did not.
The rape of Holly Bobo?
No, I did not.
Putting a bullet in the back of her head?
No, I did not, and I wouldn't do that.
All right, you can step in.
Terry Britt leaves the witness stand, not a free man, but never charged in the Holly Bobo case. Now the jury is about to hear from the most compelling kind of witness, one who claims to be an eyewitness to murder. Is this the testimony that could send Zach Adams to death row?
At that time, boom, the gun went off. And it sounded like boom, boom, boom underneath that bridge.
Chilling testimony today in the trial of Zach Adams, one of the men charged in the murder of Holly Bobo.
The prosecution opened up with a somber message to the jurors saying Adams bragged about killing Bobo.
So far, there's no concrete evidence pinning Adams to the crime.
There is no DNA, no fingerprints, no video, no recordings.
His attorney insists the case against Zach Adams is flimsy, largely circumstantial, with little direct evidence connecting him to the crime.
There was no evidence. There's not one single strand of evidence that points to me, or anybody, Dylan or Shane or Jason.
In the first 3 days of the state's case, none of the witnesses claimed to have seen Zach Adams with Holly Bobo. But that is about to change. On day 4, the state calls Jason Autry.
Jason Autry, for a long time, said that he was innocent. He had nothing to do with Holly Bobo's abduction, nothing to do with her rape, nothing to do with her murder.
I want to say one thing. I'm innocent of these charges.
I heard you say that earlier.
Right hand before God, I'm innocent, sir.
But then in late 2016, Autry changed his story.
We get a call from Jason Autry's attorney, and he informs us that Jason has been talking to prosecutors and that he's going to be testifying against Zach at trial.
Raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes, sir.
There are witnesses, there are star witnesses, and then there's Jason Autry. From gavel to gavel, the entire 4th day of testimony is all Autry.
When I pulled in, there was a large fire burning in a burn barrel. Dylan Adams was standing at the door of the trailer with his shirt off. Shane was walking around in the yard hollering, "Y'all need to hurry up and get the goddamn hell out of here," with a firearm holstered on the right side.
And just details his entire day on April 13th like it was yesterday.
Autry says Adams tells him later that he and his brother and Shane Austin had kidnapped Holly Bobo and raped her.
He said, "I need you to help me bury this body." He said, "That's Holly Bobo."
Jason Autry testifies that he and Zach Adams brought Holly Bobo here to this long, winding dirt road that runs along the Tennessee River.
Autry says they take the body, which was wrapped in a blanket, and lay it on the ground.
I'm standing over the top of him, with my hands on my knees. She being right here. And at that time, I see the foot move, and a sound of distress. It sounded like, come from the blanket. I told him, I said, "This is still alive."
Autry says he keeps a lookout while Zach gets a pistol from the truck.
And at that time, boom, the gun went off. And it sounded like boom, boom, boom underneath that bridge. It was just one shot, but it echoed underneath that bridge all the way down that damn river bottom. And when that gun went off, birds went everywhere, just all up under that bridge. And it was just dead silence for just a second.
Autry says at that point he hears a boat motor and fears they'll be discovered.
We load the body back into the truck in the same fashion, shut the tailgate. We driving just erratic. Panic, just pretty much.
To hear him telling that story.
Anger. What I felt anger, sadness, because I thought he was my friend. Why would he lie on me?
The Bobo family told us in 2017 they believe Zach Adams is responsible for their daughter's murder and that Jason Autry's testimony rang true to them.
It did, and it matched what the prosecutors had also.
My cross-examination of Autry was everything. I mean, it was really important.
The defense attorney points out at the time Autry says the murder happened, he was on phone calls with his girlfriend and also his mother.
In the middle of all this, you were able to take a telephone call from your mother, Shirley King, that morning at 9:42, weren't you?
If your records reflect that, that's true.
Autry also mentions a burn barrel at Shane Austin's house.
55-gallon barrel with all the paint off of it, with flames shooting at the top of it, 3 to 4 foot high.
Shane's mother says there was no burn barrel.
Shane didn't have a burn barrel at his trailer.
Shane's mother also says Jason Autry was wrong about a fence at Shane's trailer.
The gate was open.
No, the driveway did not have a gate at that time. We did put a gate and a fence up, and it was June of 2011 after we bought Shane a puppy.
The prosecution basically adopted Jason Autry's story of what happened, but they left huge gaps in their prosecution, and they don't explain who it was that came and abducted Holly. They don't explain how her body got at that cell tower.
Prosecutors argued at trial that Shane Austin could have been the one who took Holly.
Jason Autry is the best evidence that these prosecutors have in this case because they have very little physical evidence. They're banking on the jury completely, wholeheartedly buying his account.
Inside this courthouse, the jury is about to deliver a verdict. It could be a life or death decision for Zach Adams. Either way, it won't be the end of it. Years later, a new investigation, another courtroom battle, and prison interviews. What Zach Adams and Jason Autry say now.
I have no reason to lie.
When the verdict is announced, out of respect for this jury, I will tell you, I want you to contain your emotions. I want there to be no displays.
The jury deliberates 11 hours over 2 days and then finds Zach Adams guilty on all counts in the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Holly Bobo. When you heard them read the verdict and they said guilty.
It was terrible. It was terrible. Worst day of my life, probably.
There'll never be enough punishment for him.
He don't deserve to be breathing the air that he's breathing today.
Zach Adams avoids a possible death sentence. In a deal with prosecutors approved by the Bobo family, he gets life in prison without parole, plus 50 years.
Who was that a picture of? That's Holly and myself. That's Holly and her nursing student classmates just a few days before.
Karen Bobo, the woman who taught Zach Adams in the 4th grade, gives him a lesson on heartbreak.
I know that she begged for her life because my daughter loved and enjoyed life. But you chose to take that from her.
Tonight, a man accused of killing and raping Holly Bobo pleads guilty. Dylan Adams pleads guilty to a lesser offense, facilitating murder.
He now faces 35 years in prison without the possibility of parole.
3 years later, Jason Autry pleads guilty to lesser charges related to Holly's kidnapping and murder. And with credit for time served, he is set free.
His testimony was some of the most credible, persuasive testimony I've ever heard given in a courtroom.
The state had to make a deal with the devil to get Zach Adams prosecuted. In my opinion, all three of them should be hanging in this big oak tree on the backside of this courthouse.
From his prison cell, Zach Adams has tried and failed over the years to have his conviction overturned. Now, he is trying again.
You hear people say that they're innocent all the time in jail, in prison.
Yeah.
So people are skeptical. What do you say to those people?
He said the person was, what, 5'9", 200 pounds? It wasn't Jason Autry. He's 6'6". Couldn't have been me. I was 6'3", 125 pounds. My brother's 6'2", 125 pounds. The person in the abduction there wasn't one of us. I mean, he didn't match the description of any of us.
A flurry of legal filings beginning January 2024 lay out why Zach Adams says he deserves a new trial and why prosecutors say he does not.
April 2024, a hearing at the Hardin County Courthouse.
The court's going to order that the temporary order placing these exhibits under seal is to remain in effect.
Adams' new attorney is there and some familiar faces, trial prosecutor Jennifer Nichols and the Bobos. Zach Adams is searching for new evidence, new witnesses. He's being helped by Katie Spurko. She's a neuropsychologist and she's been re-examining the case against him.
How did you end up involved in this case?
The attorney who's representing Zach Adams, Doug Bates, is an attorney I've worked with before.
What was he looking for you to do?
He wanted me to review the case file, watch the testimony, and see if there were things that stood out to me in terms of whether someone was being honest or not.
Spurko says she is now working for Zach Adams' mother instead of his attorney.
As psychologists, we are trained on how to interview people to elicit accurate information.
Spurko provided 2020 with interviews she recorded during her investigation.
I want to know everything about you. I want to be able to look into your soul and know every single thing about you. I wanted to get a sense for what he was like because he didn't testify. And remember the first thing he asked me was if I thought he was innocent. And I said I didn't know yet.
Do you now think he's innocent?
I am so confident he's innocent.
Hi, my name's Katie, and I'm so sorry to come here unannounced. I had your address and I didn't have your phone number.
Spurko looked for more information about former suspect Terry Britt, who was later cleared by the TBI. She went to see his wife, Janet, who still stands by her husband.
There was some evidence that came up with Terry regarding the Holly Bobo situation.
I don't see how, because he didn't have nothing to do with it. There's no way he could have went and kidnapped her. He was here with me. Just because he has a record, that doesn't mean he had anything to do with it.
Some of Katie Spurko's investigating has provoked a reaction from the prosecutor. In a court filing that includes an affidavit from Janet Britt, the prosecutor accuses Spurko of trying to intimidate Britt and of offering to show her confidential discovery files.
Spurko denies she tried to intimidate Britt and says the only files she offered to share were public records of Terry Britt's criminal history. Zach Adams' court filings also say Spurko found a witness who claims she saw Terry Britt behaving oddly the morning Holly was taken.
She said he was in a smaller truck and was kind of leaning over, had made eye contact with her and was leaning over, adjusting his body to block her view of his passenger seat.
Prosecutors say Adams' attorney and Spurko have not gotten a sworn statement from that witness, which they say the law requires before it can be considered.
Still ahead, the effort to free Zach Adams brings Katie Spurko face to face with the person who helped send him to prison.
He said, somebody's got to pay, Jason. He said that he's going to be you. Hell no, I ain't paying.
Forensic neuropsychologist Katie Spurko, now working for Zach Adams' family, has spent nearly a year studying his case file, watching the trial testimony, tracking down and interviewing witnesses. But the person she most wanted to talk to was the man many say sealed Adams' fate, Jason Autry.
Mr. Autry, raise your right hand, please. Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give.
I found him to be such an engaging witness. And at the same time, there were aspects of his story that were red flags, just impossible.
Dylan Adams was standing at the door of the trailer with his shirt off. Shane was walking around in the yard with a firearm holstered on the right side.
Okay, so this is in 2017, and he's having a recollection. A friend goes around with a firearm, has it holstered on his right side. That's a really specific thing to remember.
That's my testimony, the truth.
There were just a lot of question marks for you.
Yes, he's going through the events of this day, minute by minute almost, with this crazy level of attention to detail and memory. That was a discrepancy that caught my attention.
After being released from prison for his admitted involvement in Holly Bobo's murder, it doesn't take long for Jason Autry to get in trouble with the law again.
Requesting assistance on Morris Road with a subject that has a rifle. Be advised the subject has taken off running.
Well, 2 months later, after they let him out of jail, he gets caught in the neighboring county with a firearm.
Well, breaking news now. The man who served time for the killing of Holly Bobo has been arrested once again, this time in Benton County in a field there.
There he goes, back to jail, and then he's still there to this day.
Autry ultimately pleaded guilty to these new weapons charges and remains behind bars awaiting sentencing in that case.
Back in 2017, Jason Autry told the jury that spellbinding story of what happened to Holly Bobo under the I-40 bridge right here at the banks of the Tennessee River. But what's he saying now? That's what Katie Spurko had to find out if Zach Adams was going to have any hope at all.
My name is Jason Autry.
There you go. Thank you.
When you went to see Jason, what were you hoping was going to come from that conversation?
I was just super curious what he would be like, if he would talk to me, what he would have to say. Can we just start at the very beginning of when he first started getting questioned related to the Bobo case? I asked him, what did you do that day? And he gave me what seemed like a really honest answer.
No, I couldn't tell you what I done that day.
Yeah.
Katie Spurko provided ABC News with this video, and it's the first time it's being seen publicly.
I want to know your whole experience. How did it get from you being arrested for this to you being on the stand and telling this crazy story?
So all of this, in the beginning, was just all routine questions.
Autry says that when he told his attorney that he intended to fight the charges and go to trial, he got an answer he wasn't expecting.
He said, I got you about a 95% chance. You spend the rest of your time right over. Well, that's what do they want? I need to know what they want. What do they want from me?
Yeah.
I want you to justify. Straight up about it.
What does he tell you?
Tells me he made the whole thing up. Took the phone records and the case file and put together what he did that day to craft a story that fits in with the evidence that exists and cannot be changed.
I said, well, what if I say all I seen was just a body, laying in the back of the truck? It's not enough to get you out.
Why would someone admit to killing someone if they didn't do it?
He's sitting in jail for years. He's being told that Zach's going to be telling a story against him, and basically it's this or the death penalty. And so under that amount of pressure, I think a lot of people would have folded the way he did.
And he said, I need you to help me bury this body. And he said, that's Holly Bobo.
You're an engaging witness.
Well, I was trained.
I could tell you were trained. I'm on the witness stand a lot.
Yeah.
I know. I was trained witness.
Yeah.
Who was doing the training?
Jennifer Nichols.
Yeah.
She was the boss of it all.
Zach Adams' defense team made this claim in their legal filing, and we reached out to Jennifer Nichols about it. She denied the allegation, telling us that it is a false statement. The only guidance ever given to Jason Autry was to tell the truth. There was no training.
That's the worst that I've ever felt in my life, coming back, knowing that you just lied and put an innocent man in prison.
Now he has no benefit to be gained other than morally to address the remorse. This isn't helping him whatsoever. He's facing sentencing on federal gun charges.
But it's important to remember that one way or another, Jason Autry is an admitted liar. And prosecutors argue that Autry's recantation should not get Zach Adams a new trial, saying Mr. Autry's credibility was thoroughly impeached during cross-examination at trial and that the jury was aware of inconsistencies in his testimony. They also contend that Autry's testimony was vetted and corroborated.
What do you think of the fact that Jason recanted his confession?
I'm glad. I'm glad he's telling the truth. It's about time. I wish he would have never lied in the first place.
So what does this mean for Zach Adams? Is there a chance Jason Autry's new story could set him free?
A request for a new trial for a man convicted in the 2011 murder of a Holly Bobo.
I mean, so many years something I didn't do, so I'm hopeful.
This case is a tragedy. There was never a day in that courtroom that I didn't feel for Karen Bobo.
And you have shown absolutely, look at me please, you have shown absolutely no remorse for anything that you have done.
At sentencing, Holly Bobo's mother, there was that very dramatic moment where she wanted to speak to you and look you face to face, eye to eye.
Well, she felt like she was talking to the person that took her daughter's life, but she don't realize that I'm not that person. They're the real victims of all this, but they didn't know that we didn't have anything to do with it. And if I knew anything, I would have helped any way I could have.
Before this happened to Holly, we lived in what we thought was one of the safest communities. The day that Holly was abducted, not only was something taken from us, it was taken from our whole county, community, and the surrounding counties.
The goal was to get justice for Holly, and I feel like that happened. And obviously it didn't bring her back. There will still be sad, but there is a little peace in knowing that the people that did this to her will be in jail.
But now there are questions about whether one of those people, Zach Adams, will remain behind bars.
A request for a new trial for a man convicted in the 2011 murder of a Holly Bobo.
Zach Adams' team will now need to convince a judge that Jason Autry's new story amounts to new evidence that would have changed the jury's verdict.
Jason Autry recanted his testimony, and that would give Adams an alibi for Bobo's murder.
We reached out to Jennifer Nichols, the prosecutor in this case. She declined our request for an interview, but sent us a statement that says in part, "At trial, we presented proof through 62 witnesses and 250 exhibits. The jurors heard testimony of Zachary Adams' confessions to multiple and unrelated individuals. Today, nearly 8 years after the verdicts, I remain confident in the jury's verdicts of Zachary Adams' guilt."
We understood, when the trial and sentence and everything took place, that there'd be a number of events down through the years. We're going to be patient because we still are seeking justice for our beloved Holly.
Holly was always about helping someone. Whatever Holly did, she put forth her best effort. And it was just in her soul to be that kind, loving, nurturing person.
It's been more than 13 years since Holly's passing, and her legacy still remains. A stretch of Tennessee highway has been dedicated in her honor, and Holly's cousin, country singer Whitney Duncan, recorded a song to honor Holly.
I wanted to convey a message of she's not hurting anymore. You know, she is in a better place. But I know she's watching down and she sees everything, and she is happy.
After Holly's death, the Bobo family established a scholarship in her name for other nursing students.
As for Zach Adams, a hearing is scheduled next month when a judge is going to consider some of his legal filings. That's our program for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir. From all of us here at 2020 and ABC News, good night.
To a lost story, a lost mom of 2 young boys, that is.
Plus a key witness, Deborah, who asks the police to pray with her before she tells them what she knows. And all new 2020 starts right now.
She was a wonderful mother. She loved her boys more than anything, more than her own life.
A young woman who is a parent suddenly had disappeared.
Was there anything suspicious in the car?
And we saw in the back seat there were car seats, for the 2 boys.
But to disappear without them, that was impossible. That was not Laura.
She drops off the map. This wasn't going to be just a normal missing person.
Oh, baby, don't go. Oh, baby, don't leave me.
He knew how to charm a lady and charm the crowd alike.
And then it wasn't too much longer later that Amanda came into the picture.
What did Grant tell your mom about Laura?
That she was crazy, she was mentally unstable.
He lied.
And here was a document that said she sold her kids for $25,000.
And they were like, well, Laura's missing. And I was like, wait a freaking second. Are you sure?
What are you thinking at this point?
Something is really wrong.
You've got to be sick and deranged.
What would drive anybody to commit such a crime?
Wherever she is, her heart is breaking. The search continues.
There's been cases I investigate I don't even remember. But then there's some that while you're in the midst of it, this one was just different.
Oyster Creek is notorious for alligators.
That's just a long, meandering creek.
It's a small creek, slow moving in that area.
Very dark, murky, muddy water.
Has zero visibility. It's heavily wooded. There's a lot of lily pads.
All the lily pads literally took off the creek.
It was the perfect place to get rid of what they wanted to get rid of.
This is Oyster Creek, a quiet spot about 30 miles outside Houston, Texas. On a hot, steamy July day, just like this one, back in 2011, police divers were scouring these murky waters, searching for clues in the disappearance of a young mom. But Laura Ackerson was last heard from 1,200 miles away from here, in North Carolina.
Wednesday, July 13th at 4:19 p.m. Hey, lady, it's Laura. I'll be there in about an hour, but I'm going to go visit with my boys. Don't know what's going to happen as far as that's concerned.
Laura left that voicemail for a friend she promised to visit later that night. Meanwhile, another friend and business partner, Siobhan Mathis, was also waiting to hear from her.
It was just very odd that it was going straight to her voicemail, because she always had that phone on. I walked to her house, but it's gated and locked, and you can't get in, but I can see into the garage, and her car wasn't there.
Then she sends her an email. I'm really worried. If you don't get up with me, I'm going to call the police.
Siobhan was getting more and more worried with every passing second. And she decided to report Laura missing.
I don't want to think the worst, but it's almost like what else is there to think?
police in Raleigh, North Carolina start looking into Laura Ackerson's background. They find out she's a small-town girl from Michigan. Roger Ackerson was her dad.
She was curious. She wanted to learn things. She'd crawl up in my lap with a book, want me to read to her.
Laura's parents divorced when she was just a toddler. As she grew older, it was clear she had a bright spark.
Full of dreams. She could see beyond the end of her nose, where a lot of people can't.
Everybody she met, she would always see the good in everyone.
She didn't become the valedictorian of her high school class because she didn't want to do all the work. But a couple of years down the road, she said, boy, I wish I had.
After high school, she moved to North Carolina and landed a waitressing job. That's where she met Heidi Schumacher.
We were working at Applebee's together. Her first day, I was training her. I, was a little snippety at her, and she said, "You're not going to talk to me like that." Nobody had ever stood up to me before, and I said, "Oh, you know what?" I smiled at her, and I said, "Well, let's go out tonight. We're going to be great friends."
And then, when Laura turned 23, she had an announcement to make.
And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I have a surprise for you." And I said, "Okay, well, happy birthday," because it was on her birthday. And I was like, "Okay, what is the surprise?" She's like, "Okay, it's a guy." And I said, "Oh, all right, surprise, it's a guy."
So tired, shoes on the floor, food in the pan. What makes a man?
Grant Hayes was a aspiring musical artist.
Show me one man, I'll show you a man.
He was known to Raleigh area.
Talk to her sweetly, tell her no lie.
Raleigh is a place we call the New South. It's a great mix of people coming from all over the country, raising their families. It's big enough that you have a city atmosphere, but it also has some small town values.
Downtown Raleigh was kind of burgeoning, and so there are all these new bars and restaurants, and he was a musical act who would play at a lot of these places.
Are you still with me when I'm gone? Are you still with me when I don't come?
People liked his music. People liked his vibe.
Grant Hayes, we love you!
And she said, "We share a birthday. We're so connected." She thought it was some sort of cosmic intervention, that they were supposed to meet and they were supposed to be together.
We were always together, and the nighttime we'd go outside.
And she was smitten. She was. And he was, he's a nice looking guy. He's charismatic. And so seeing that, I think maybe a little bit of starstruck.
I grew up in the pew, little Grant III, watching my father preach, and my mother would sing. And they've always been a huge inspiration.
Grant was known by his last name, Hayes. He thought he could get some more buzz by changing Hayes to Haze, Hayes.
She was kind of in awe of what he did. See, he would go to bars and he'd take his guitar and he'd sing songs.
I'm working with some iconic figures in history, music history. Little Richard, godfather of rock and roll.
Laura and Grant fell in love very quickly.
She goes, my surprise is that I just got married. And I said, "Oh my gosh, awesome." She just was a spur of the moment kind of person, so it didn't really surprise me, I guess, that she would just meet somebody and get married to them. And she was ecstatic at that moment.
Laura got pregnant very early on, and she had a little boy named Grant, the fourth. Always referred to as Little Grant.
What she told me after she delivered the baby was that she was very happy because when Grant walked in and saw him, he fell in love with the baby.
Oh, baby, don't go. Oh, baby, don't leave me.
Heidi was not a fan of Grant Hayes, and she was very clear about that.
We've had hateful tension between us since the moment we met. And she said, "Why can't you just be happy for me?" I said, "I know, but I just got this really bad feeling from him." And, and she would say that I was just trying to protect her, and I was just being an overprotective friend and, all that. And so I backed off.
Soon, an opportunity in the Caribbean takes Laura and Grant's lives in very different directions.
Party, stay out late, stay up all night. They were kind of living two separate lives.
There was something simmering underneath that in the relationship. There may have been trouble there in paradise.
St. John is a really quaint, quiet island. It's about 4,000 people.
It's a magical place. It's a fantastic place. It's got an affluent clientele that goes there because 80% of the island's national park can't even be developed.
Yeah, there is no airport. The only way to this island is by boat. You're going to take your flight to St. Thomas, and you're going to have to take a passenger ferry.
St. John's attracts musicians from all over. Kenny Chesney owns a home here, and a local island hangout helped.
Audience, people liked his music here in Raleigh, but he thought he could take the next step in his career with music by going to the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Jose, who asked us only to use his first name, booked musicians into the bars and nightclubs on the island.
My phone rang, and it was Grant. He explained that he was looking to make sure that he could get enough gigs to support his basic costs of living. I promised him that I could get him 5 shows a week.
So he packed up and went down there.
He did speak of his son and Laura, and that she was going to eventually come down here once he got settled.
The Caribbean could be very seductive with the night air, the breezes, the music, the sand. When the sun goes down is when it really comes alive.
He knew how to work his crowd and play the right music for the people in the audience.
And I was listening to him play, and I really liked his sound. You know the artist Sade? He was like a male version of her. It just kind of a groovy, smooth vibe.
Show me one man, I'll show you a man.
He definitely had some similarities to someone like Darius Rucker.
I want to love, and I want to give you more.
I owned a bar on the island of St. John. How I first encountered Grant Hayes, he was playing, I believe it was at the Parrot Club. He was taking a break. He says, man, I really dig your sound. I'll bring some people from my bar down. And he says, really? From your bar? Yeah. But they won't be spending money with you if they're not at your bar. We'll have a good time.
Are you still with me when I'm gone? Are you still with me?
He was just waiting for that one guy to come in that's on vacation that might be with a record company. To actually identify and recognize that this guy has talent and let's make him an offer.
But for now, he had to make do with paychecks of $150 to $200 per gig.
It looked from the outside looking in that Laura and Grant had a great relationship. No one really knew the trouble brewing.
He was very possessive. It was like he owned her.
Grant didn't want her to have a relationship with her brother. He did not want any close relationships except for the one with him.
Well, she had pretty effectively been isolated from everyone else in her life. I mean, he would take her self-esteem and just crush it into the ground. I, got to the door and she answered and she had a bloody nose and a, almost black eye already. I tried to get her to go to the hospital or file a police report or anything. No, he won't do it again. It's okay. It's going to be okay. I'm not going to press charges. It's fine.
She's an optimist. She thought, well, he may change eventually. Always looking for the better side of him.
Grant denied ever hitting Laura. Now she's planning to join him on St. John. But then she says she receives a stark warning from family and friends.
I told her, don't go back. You don't need to go back to that.
She really realized, man, I have to leave him. And I said, okay. And then we had a plan for her to leave, and she had gotten sick 3 or 4 mornings in a row. And she was pregnant. I said, you can still leave. You can still go. And she said, no, I have to tell him it's the right thing to do.
It would have been easy. Just stay here. But instead she went back.
She was going to do whatever it took to make that family work. She went down to St. John to start over, and she had told me that he said, oh, when you come down here, it's going to be great.
Now reunited on the island of St. John, Laura gives birth to their second son in August of 2009. They name him Gentle.
And then you have Gentle, because now in my maturity, I'm understanding what real masculinity is, and it's gentle.
She was a wonderful mother. She loved her boys more than anything, more than her own life.
She was a good mother, and she laid low and was a housewife. She wasn't into the party. They were kind of living two separate lives, and that's one of the reasons why he would hang out at my house, just so that he could do what he wanted and be himself, because he couldn't do that at home. Party, stay out late, stay up all night.
I never saw him like walk over and kiss her on the cheek or any of that. There wasn't that kind of in-person tenderness between them that I ever saw.
The little baby, Gentle, needed some medical attention and thought that here in North Carolina would be a better place to get him the medical care he needed.
So she made plans to move back to take care of her boy.
Laura had left the island, and he was kind of on his own. That wasn't really good for him, because then he could just really do whatever he wanted. He knew how to charm a lady and charm the crowd alike. So it wasn't hard for him to have a group of ladies to chat with after he stopped playing, and he had no problem getting them to blush and getting a phone number.
And sure enough, another woman soon makes waves in Grant's island life.
Amanda, to me, was a striking woman.
And Laura became concerned and suspicious and had a huge surprise coming her way. It appeared that things were going well in St. John. Grant was trying to get his music career going there.
Good night, Trey. Don't give a ride to the Lord.
And Laura, she's living here in North Carolina with the two little boys, trying to get their youngest son needed medical treatment.
And then it wasn't too much longer later that Amanda came into the picture. Amanda, to me, was a striking woman.
Amanda's daughter, Shay, shared a lot of details with us, but she asked that we not use her last name. And what was your relationship like growing up?
My mom was my best friend. My mom was my hero. Like, what do you want to be whenever you grow up? I want to be like my mom.
Amanda had been married 3 times previously, and the most recent husband before Grant was a wealthy businessman in Texas. And he actually died in an accident. After his death, there's a lot of money that Amanda inherits.
Her big claim to fame was in acting. She was in the actual Stepford Wives, the remake that was done with Nicole Kidman, and she had a very small part.
So how did she end up in St. John?
She went down there on vacation. She was supposed to be gone for 2 weeks.
She loved it so much. She moved down to the Virgin Islands. That was where she wanted to live.
You lived there with her?
I did.
How old were you at that point?
I was 20.
And so how did she meet Grant Hayes?
He was playing music.
So it brought some people down there to listen to Grant play, and Amanda come in. She was looking at him like she hadn't eaten in a while, and he was a steak.
Who pursued whom?
The tango is two-sided.
And did you see their infatuation, romance unfold?
It wasn't instant. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, fireworks, oh.
I definitely started seeing him hanging with Amanda, and it was obvious that they were a couple.
I called him out for it. I said, man, you can't be doing this with her up in the States, Lori up in the States. He goes, oh, no, we're getting divorced, and it's over. She's staying up there. She's never coming back to the island.
What was Grant's relationship like with Amanda?
Yeah, I think with Amanda, because she was a little bit older, more mature, I don't think that she was sort of pushed around and controlled.
Got very territorial. Let's say there's a group of females in there, and one was, Grant and her were having too much eye contact and smiles, whatever. Then Amanda, being over here, would have the server bring her a drink, so that's from Grant's girlfriend. To kind of set her territory.
And Laura, from a distance here in North Carolina, became concerned. and suspicious there was something else happening there. Eventually, this relationship between Amanda and Grant takes the next step. It develops into something more, and they make the move from the Virgin Islands to New York.
She convinced him that she can introduce him to the people that can make his career take off.
Was he successful?
I mean, he got repeat bookings at some of the different places. You know, he played the Grant Hayes variety show.
Let me get a warm welcome for Mr. Grant Hayes.
I don't know. I ain't trying to. And then Grant says, to Laura, I would really like little Grant, their oldest son, to come visit me in New York.
Grant is shorter. This is just for 10 days. 10 days came and went, and he hasn't brought Grant back. And Laura was asking why. You said you would.
And Laura had to file for custody to even see her son again. She didn't have a choice.
Fighting to get her oldest boy back. In April of 2010, Laura hears surprising news.
Grant calls her and says, Amanda and I just went to Vegas and we got married. It's a bombshell. It's a shock to Laura.
It was a little surprising that they were getting married. They were definitely moving very fast.
I married my soulmate, my best friend, and she is something that I wanted my whole life.
Friends and family had been given the impression that Laura and Grant were married, but apparently they never were.
Then Grant took a very aggressive move and went to court without her.
He made these allegations about she's mentally unstable, she doesn't have a stable home, she's working as an escort.
They had alleged that Laura was a danger to the children.
He lied. He said several things in the ex parte custody order that just plain weren't true.
And based on those allegations, Mr. Hayes got Judge Turner to sign an emergency custody order.
He granted a temporary custody to Grant, not just little Grant, but also Gentle. And little Gentle was carted off from there and given over to his father.
The worst time in her life was when she did not get to see her kids. She was devastated.
She went to work to do whatever it would take to get the two boys back.
As for Grant and Amanda, they moved down to Raleigh as the custody battle heats up.
We had the court appoint Dr. Ginger Calloway.
Where do you practice?
In Raleigh.
To evaluate both parties.
To be able to give the court an opinion over whose home may be the best home for these children to be in.
During that evaluation, Laura went on the record to say that Grant had isolated and controlled her, while Grant charged that she was the one manipulating him.
When the psychologist report came in, the parts about Mr. Hayes referred to him having some, what the psychologist called, illogical and disturbed thinking.
He rages angrily about Laura in front of the children. It is obvious they do not want Laura included in the children's lives. This is very concerning because, in essence, they want to obliterate her.
And she came basically to the conclusion that, Laura had work to do.
She is less mature than other adults and is easily overwhelmed.
The psychologist did recommend a 50-50 split in custody, and that would have been a substantial improvement for where we were.
In the meantime, Amanda had gotten pregnant.
Lily in Love.
Lily in Love?
Yes.
And gave birth to a little baby girl.
All right.
They were thrilled to welcome baby Lily into the world, joining Grant's two sons. But that was overshadowed by Grant's struggles to break through in the music business.
Between the legal proceedings and I think Grant's spending, they're out of money.
It was a mess.
Yes.
He was the reason that my mom was not okay. Sitting in a bathroom floor crying, going, I have no idea how the hell I'm going to do this. I mean, what do? You've gone through over $200,000 in 18 months.
That's how much money they went through?
Easily.
How dire was the financial situation?
Oh, they were getting evicted from their apartment.
Grant called his mom, Patsy, and said, hey, we need to move in with you.
Hey, Mom, it's Grant. Me and Amanda
Amanda and Lily are going to move in with you guys. Don't have the money for a storage building right now. If you could front that to me, okay? All right, bye-bye.
It's now July of 2011, and while Grant and Amanda sink, Laura's fortunes were finally rising.
Her main priority in life was to get her kids back. She went back to school. She, got her own place, got her own job, got her own car.
She was very enthusiastic about the career and getting her boys back.
Laura even started a new company with her friend Siobhan, selling ad space on restaurant menus. She successfully pitched local restaurant owners and socialized with new friends.
I am going to Raleigh. I don't know if I'll be able to see you before 7, but I want to find out if you're going to be available after that at any point. So that's there.
Laura sounds upbeat, but she has no idea that she's now driving straight into terrible danger. It's July 2011. Laura Ackerson hasn't been heard from in days, and her friends are worried about the 27-year-old mother of two. They report her missing.
ABC 11 Eyewitness News at 5:30 starts right now.
So far, there's been no other signs of the missing woman.
I'm not the only person that's worried about her.
She's been missing for quite a while, but, there's still hope.
Ackerson apparently came to Raleigh last week on business.
We got a description of Laura's vehicle, and we put a bolo out, be on the lookout for patrol officers just to see if they are able to locate the vehicle.
That night, by 11 o'clock that night, our patrol guys had found the car.
So where was it?
Right over here, if you see this black color SUV, it's right there in that same parking space is where it was.
Was there anything suspicious in the car?
But nothing really of evidentiary value. I mean, we saw in the back seat there were car seats, for the two boys. There was an idea that maybe she decided, hey, I'm going to go to the airport, I'm going to take a trip somewhere.
If she had disappeared with her boys, that would not have been an overwhelming surprise. But to disappear without them, that wasn't possible. That was not Laura.
So we definitely explored that possibility. We checked Laura's financials, we checked her cell phone records, all that. All her activity ended on July 13th.
She's not buying gas, she's not buying food, she's doing nothing. She just completely goes silent.
Something that we would normally do in a missing person case is we want to go to their apartment or their house. Maybe they left a note.
The police go into Laura's apartment and thoroughly search it, looking for anything that could point to a problem or that any violence occurred.
It was very well kept. It was clean. She had several plants that were inside the apartment. None of them had been watered for numerous days.
That was a good indication that she had not returned or that nobody was coming in and out of the apartment to take care of things. From looking at the apartment, you could tell she's definitely a dedicated mother. That's what stood out, number one.
Almost half the apartment was dedicated to space for the kids, and that kind of reflected her life, that, so much of her life was focused on her children.
They pulled the video from the public spaces of Laura's apartment building.
The video captured the hallway outside of her door on the morning of the 13th. Just a lady that was on her way to work in the morning by herself. Completely normal morning.
She was not under duress, did not seem to be in a hurry, did not have suitcases that she's dragging behind.
We learned that Gentle had a birthday party the following weekend that was scheduled, and that Laura had no-showed on it. That's all when we started thinking this wasn't going to be just a normal missing person.
We still want to look, hey, are there other people in Laura's life that may have something to do with her disappearance?
Laura admitted that she'd gone to some sugar daddy sites.
You're trying to meet maybe wealthier men. We were never able to show that there was any meeting of any kind between Laura and somebody else.
One detective reaches out to Laura's ex, Grant Hayes, who says that Laura had visited him on the night of Wednesday, July 13th.
He gives timeline of when she was there at the apartment. Well, she actually came up here to visit the boys and says that she left, after being there for a little while.
Grant Hayes also tells investigators that 2 days after visiting his apartment, Laura was supposed to meet him at the local Sheetz gas station for their scheduled custody exchange.
He shows up to the scheduled Friday 5 o'clock time. He has the boys with him.
They would come in the store to use the restroom. Grant goes in to buy a pack of cigarettes. But essentially, they're waiting in the parking lot.
And waits for over an hour for Laura to arrive. And she never arrives.
He was sending out very angry email messages and text messages to Laura. You're late again. Where are you?
And first at 5:30 tonight, we have new details and new updates on the big stories happening now. I'm Steve Daniels. I anchor the evening news covering Raleigh. This was a really compelling case. Our viewers were watching this every step of the way.
She was to meet them and their father in Wilson that afternoon, according to the children's grandmother.
She didn't show up at 5, and so he was there until 5, and he called me at 6:30 and said she had not shown up yet.
It's distressing, and I just hope it all comes to an end quickly and that she's all right.
It's not like her to do something like this, especially to not pick up her kids.
Detectives realize that no one has heard from Laura since that voicemail she left on July 13th for her friend, Oksana Smarsky.
I was in a study group and I saw my phone ring and I wish I would pick it up. And if I knew what would happen, I would not let it ring.
I'll just give you a call when I'm done, and I just wanted to let you know, too, I don't know if I'll be able to see you before 7, but that's there.
Laura's destination that night had been Grant and Amanda's apartment.
Tell me, where is the apartment?
And so their apartment is right on the other side of this small building here.
So how did you get a search warrant to go in?
So we had developed enough information, I just think, to get that search warrant initially. We were really trying to develop a timeline for Laura. Any evidence that maybe Laura had been there.
So one of the things that we did find in the apartment was a note. It appeared to be handwritten.
Up on the counter in the kitchen area, just kind of laying there very conspicuously, which was weird.
And what that note said was that Laura Ackerson, in exchange for receiving $25,000, would give up custody of her children.
It was signed Laura Ackerson.
That was suspicious, because everybody had been telling the police Laura would not leave her boys.
Those boys were Laura's life. She would have never signed over her children for any amount of money.
Why a note? You already are going through the court system. Why don't you just go through your attorneys?
And that is not the only curious discovery in that apartment.
As soon as they opened the door, hit with the overwhelming smell of bleach.
It's been a week since Laura Ackerson's disappearance, and investigators are now searching the apartment of her ex, Grant Hayes.
Police were here yesterday asking a lot of questions.
It's a 3-bedroom apartment. There's a small kitchen area.
I remember there being a couch, maybe a table, but there's not a lot of furniture.
Was there anything unusual about that moment when you walked in the door?
It smelled like bleach. It's just that strong odor of bleach that hits you.
And so, what did that tell you?
At least that someone had been cleaning is what it appeared, but then we see this large, bleach stain.
At that point, alarm bells are going off.
Right.
And that's not like a little old stain.
No, a significant bleach stain right at the entryway in the apartment.
It was clear something happened right here at this door that required them to bleach this carpet.
And then there were a couple other things that we find that kind of throw up red flags as well.
The bathroom, which before July 13th had been the place where the little boys went to brush their teeth, take their baths, play in the bathtub. Suddenly, there was nothing in that room.
It's the cleanest bathroom I've ever been in.
There's no floor mats, there's no shower curtain.
And like shiny clean on every possible surface. And what does that point to? That something has taken place inside this bathroom that required cleaning. And I think it really stuck out too because the rest of the home, it wasn't super dirty, but it was not clean to the level that that bathroom was clean.
Clearly, something happened in that bathroom.
We did everything that you could do to a bathroom. We tore it apart. We ripped up the floor. We took out the plumbing and did everything that you could do forensically at that time. We even went to the apartment below, came up through the ceiling to get the plumbing, and nothing. There was nothing. There was no blood. Laura's body was not there. Nothing broken to indicate a struggle. So we still are kind of on the fence of what do we have here?
So investigators now have a lot more questions for Grant and Amanda. But first, they have to find them.
Detective Falk had learned that Amanda had a daughter. Her name was Shay. And Detective Falk conducted an interview with her.
The police show up at your door. What was that like?
Terrifying. I've never had a speeding ticket before. I've never been in trouble before.
And so what did you tell them?
Well, they wanted to know where my mom was. And I was like, what do you mean, where is my mom? And I was like, what is this about? And they were like, well, Laura's missing. And I was like, wait a freaking second. You guys need to find my mom. And I need you to find out where the babies are because they are probably not okay.
Where Shay tells us my mom and Grant, they took off and they went down to Texas.
Grant and Amanda were loading the kids up and making a trip to Texas to visit Amanda's sister, Karen Berry.
She was going to go visit my aunt because my grandmother had just died and she hadn't seen her sister in years. And I told my mom, I was like, I want to go with you. And she told me no.
Amanda's daughter, Shay, tells police Grant rented a U-Haul trailer at this location on July 16th. That's 3 days after Laura went missing. Now what investigators want to know is why.
So after finding that, I requested surveillance video from U-Haul here in Raleigh.
Why'd they rent a U-Haul trailer? Well, according to Shay, there's this kind of antique hutch that she was going to give to my aunt.
At this point, Grant and Amanda were downsizing their belongings as they were getting ready to move.
I guess that Grant was like, take it to your sister's, it'll be safe there.
Did that sound odd to you?
I mean, we've had this piece of furniture for like 20 years. Why are you worried about where it's going to be now? But whatever.
Grant makes a comment when he goes to get the U-Haul trailer that he's going on a fishing trip with his son.
The police wanted to know where Grant was, and so they checked his cell phone pings and found out that he was in Texas.
One of the first pings that we get on Amanda's cell phone is her sister Karen Berry's house.
The court ordered that they were not allowed to take Grant and Gentle out of the state of North Carolina until the whole custody situation is resolved.
It was definitely significant to us that he was willing to take the risk and go to Texas with these boys, knowing that if that was found out, that would be a problem for him.
Pretty immediately, we make a decision, hey, we've got to go to Texas.
This is literally a 20-hour drive on a hunch that we could find evidence out there. So Skinner Lane is in the middle of nowhere. 2 deputies, myself, drove to Karen Berry's house cold. She didn't know we were coming. We told her that basically we wanted to talk to her about Grant and Amanda. She told us that she was expecting us.
She was very, very nervous.
She cried a lot, and she said, before I answer any more questions, do you mind if I pray?
And it means there's something big that you're about to tell us.
And as a homicide detective, anytime somebody wants to pray, you let them pray. first reaction was, whew, this just got real.
It was the lead story on the news night after night after night.
Grant shows up to the Friday handoff
and waits for over an hour for Laura to arrive, and she never arrives.
I can't imagine being under that Texas sun trying to find the woman's body. It was just a grotesque thing to have to do.
And you would have to dive through murky water like this?
It's not a swimming hole. It's not a place where people go paddling in. This is just sort of a wasteland.
You found a manual for the power saw. What went through your mind?
No one does construction work in this house.
And I'm just buying a saw at 2 o'clock in the morning.
How the hell did we get here?
As soon as prosecutors hear this song, they're like, wow.
It was a song.
Not real life.
Until it is real life.
When Laura first went missing, this case sort of blew up. A young woman who's a parent who suddenly had disappeared, and she really disappeared off the face of the earth.
At this point in the investigation, we really don't know what exactly has happened to Laura.
Grant and Amanda had gone down to Texas to visit Amanda's sister. They rented a U-Haul trailer.
We knew that Grant and Amanda had come back to Raleigh.
Where is Laura Ackerson? That's what everyone's been wondering since she went missing days ago. Raleigh police finally have what could be a breakthrough lead, so they drive 1,200 miles to pay an unexpected visit to Amanda's sister, here in Richmond, Texas.
Karen Berry was Amanda's sister, but in a lot of ways she was more of a mother figure. She was who Amanda always turned to when she had any problems.
Well, it was a Sunday afternoon, and I received a call out advising that the Raleigh Police Department had traveled from North Carolina, and they were requesting some investigative assistance from the sheriff's office.
When they knock on the door of Karen Berry and she answers, it's almost like she was counting the minutes for them to get there. And her first reaction to them is, you can come in and I'll talk to you, but can I just have a moment to pray first?
There's some soul searching going on.
Yes.
And do you remember the words that she prayed?
Basically just a prayer of, give me the strength to do the right thing, to help me do what I need to do.
After she finished praying, she tells us that Grant and Amanda had shown up on Monday the 18th. She's excited to see her sister. Lily had just been born, and Karen had never seen her. She had never met Grant.
Karen didn't get a very good impression of Grant because he was hyper nervous.
Grant slept most of the day. Karen pointed that out.
And she could tell something was wrong with her sister.
Amanda seemed troubled, but also concerning were several inquiries that Amanda and Grant had made of her and her boys.
What were the peculiar questions?
Well, one was about the creek. Just across the street is Oyster Creek. Karen's boys, they had a flat-bottom boat. Grant and Amanda, they were asking permission to use the boat to go out there to explore for sharks. Well, we're 90 miles inland, and this is a freshwater creek. I'm pretty confident there's never been a sighting of a shark in Fort Bend County.
Grant asked, are there alligators where I can access Oyster Creek?
And then they talk about they want to go fishing. They'll take the boat out fishing.
And Karen said, no, that is not a place that you need little toddlers fishing.
Karen told the police that they took the boat out one night. She didn't know why. The boys were sound asleep. So it didn't make any sense to her.
We conveyed to her repeatedly that we are not looking at her as a suspect. And then we directed the conversation toward Laura. Did Grant and Amanda tell you anything? She clearly conveyed to me that Laura and Amanda did not get along. And then she told us Amanda had come into the kitchen and said, I need to talk with you outside. It's important. Amanda said Laura's not a good person. Amanda then tells Karen, I hurt her. I hurt Laura. I pushed her, and it's bad. We asked her, do you think that Laura's dead? And Karen said, I think that there's a good chance. And at that point, she gave us consent to search the property.
The scene was immediately cordoned off. There were several areas on the property itself that we needed to search, in addition to searching the creek across the street.
This creek is off of Skinner Lane, off in Corbin County. We're about 100 yards west of the 4300 block.
It looks different now, right?
Yeah, things have changed a lot in the last 13 years.
There were big piles of trash all in the backyard. There was a hog pen to the right of the house.
You uncovered a lot of evidence here.
We did. We uncovered a lot of evidence. Karen was asked what items were left behind. Are these yours, or are these something that you know nothing about? We found some empty carry-on suitcases, presumably left by Grant or Amanda. We found some ice chests.
Karen was not aware that they came down there with 3 coolers until she saw Grant cleaning them out in the backyard.
If these were ice chests that were needed for their long journey to Texas from Raleigh, why weren't they needed during the long journey back?
Fort Bend police call in crime scene investigator Officer Kim Oreskevich. They want her to search that muddy creek across the street from Karen Barry's house.
When I got here is when Lieutenant told me that, hey, you're looking for a body.
And so what was going through your mind?
I was like, no, we're not going to find it. If there was dumped here in the creek, normally the current would take it out.
The creek was probably 25 feet wide, very swampy looking.
It's not a swimming hole. It's not a place where people go paddling in. This is just sort of a wasteland. There are alligators. They had someone in the boat ready to shoot an alligator.
We're down, obviously, on our knees in the boat, so he's literally above us, watching for gators in front of us, see if there's any signs of a gator coming out.
With a long gun in his hand.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine being under that Texas sun trying to find a woman's body. It was just a grotesque thing to have to do.
What did you see? We're like, okay, there's something big floating on top of the water in the water lilies.
My first reaction was, whew, this just got real.
From the water to the riverbed, the search for Laura Ackerson continues. Laura's body believed to be dumped here in Texas.
It was a hot July day when you went out on the boat.
Yes.
What did you see?
We found something big floating on top of the water in the water lilies. And it was just white and pinkish. And when we got up close to it, you could see that it's one half of a torso. When they said, oh, you're looking for a body, I wasn't expecting dismembered body, so that was a shock to your system.
Kim pretty quickly locates what ultimately was determined to be 2 portions of a torso kind of tangled up in the vegetation of the creek.
And that kind of confirmed to everybody here, now this is a homicide.
Once those dismembered body parts were found floating near the surface of Oyster Creek, Houston dive teams were called in. They had to search now beneath the surface of these murky, alligator-filled waters, looking for more remains. They need to know, is it really Laura?
It's becoming important to find things like the hands or the feet or the head that can help with identifying the body.
Mark Thorson and Brian Davis of the Houston Police Dive Team still remember being on scene that awful day. What kind of dives did you normally do on this unit?
And we pretty much go get anything out of the water. Vehicles, guns, bodies.
And what's visibility like underwater?
Most of our dives on the dive team, we do not have visibility.
You're basically just fanning your hand out or your arm out in front of you. You want to feel it before you run over it. The first 2 hours, we searched underwater. We didn't come up with anything, so we had to change our tactic, and that's when we decided to go on our tiptoes and go through the lily pads.
And you would have to dive through murky water like this?
Yes. This is what we were facing. When you're in the middle of it, it just closes in on you. And it's difficult searching, or it's hard searching for what we're looking for. We started seeing sheen and smelling. If you've ever smelled a decomposing body, you know that odor, and you're not going to forget it. We're moving the lilies, and the scent would get stronger, or it would get weaker. As we're moving the lilies, you can see a white, grayish object in the water, and immediately knew that I had a body part. All I saw was what looked like skin, and I could see a bone. I called out to Mark. Mark swam over, and he placed his hands on top of mine and rolled it, and that was when we learned that we had the head.
We recovered virtually all of her body, but the most important piece was being able to recover her head, because we were able to do dental record comparisons where that's as good as a fingerprint.
They were able to confirm that it was Laura Ackerson, and that mother of 2 boys was now dead.
And they knew they'd found Laura in the Texas creek. Sorry.
What was your reaction when you heard about body parts being found in a creek near your aunt's house, and somehow your mom's mixed up in it?
It was the most devastating thing to have ever happened in my life.
In my interviews with Karen, I was aware that Grant and Amanda were inquiring about where a Home Depot was at. They had some shopping that they wanted to do.
Investigators visit a local Home Depot and uncover this video of Grant purchasing suspicious items, including muriatic acid.
We had video evidence of the purchase of the muriatic acid, garbage can, and also some large cuff neoprene chemical resistant gloves.
A Home Depot employee told law enforcement that Grant had asked if the acid would eliminate the odor from a hog pen.
We searched the hog pen, and we noticed a larger darkened spot, circular spot, right in the middle of the hog pen. In getting close to the soil, you could smell the chemical smell of presumably muriatic acid.
So what do you think happened there?
They attempted to dispose of Laura in that hog pen.
Destroy her
yes,
physical remains.
or at least means of identifying her.
Despite having found Laura's body parts, the police still don't know how she was killed. But they do have enough evidence for arrest warrants for Grant and Amanda.
We head down to Kinston to arrest Grant and Amanda at their parents' house. And we take them into custody.
Grant left a note on the dresser of his parents' house, and it said that he grants sole custody of Grant, Gentle, and Lily to his parents. He had to know that he was in a dangerous position.
Both Grant Hayes and his wife Amanda are now in jail.
Hayes and his wife Amanda are both charged with murder in the death of Laura Ackerson. Both pleaded not guilty.
I even sent him a message. I said, Grant, what the hell, dude? What are you doing? Wait, why? You know? I don't know if he ever read he was incarcerated at that point.
What was your reaction to her arrest and being charged with murder?
Shocked. How the hell did we get here?
I can't imagine a daughter watching her mother be arrested and charged with murder and have to contend with that.
It's soul-shattering. It makes you question your morals and values. It makes you question who you are.
Soon, authorities find even more evidence they say will bolster their case. When you see the surveillance video, what went through your mind?
It's scary. It's barbaric. It's inhumane.
Soon after their arrest, Grant and Amanda are led into the courtroom.
Are you Grant Ruffin Hayes?
Yes. Jason Ackerson watched from the front row as the father of his sister's children faced a judge. Grant Hayes III is now charged with killing his children's mother. They have also charged his wife, Amanda Hayes, with murder. Today, both Hayes and his wife went back to jail with no bond.
These guys are monsters.
My mom's not a monster. She got pulled into a bad situation. That woman in that picture is not the mama that I grew up with.
Shay, she didn't think her mother could be responsible for anything violent.
At some point, she had found this owner's manual for a skill saw.
You found a manual for the power saw.
For some type of power saw.
What went through your mind?
No one does construction work in this house. And I don't see anything freshly built.
She made a decision to kind of help us.
I figured if they had the manual, they could figure out where he bought it. And they did.
It was Walmart that tells us, yeah, we actually sold one on the early morning hours of July 14th.
They found Grant Hayes at 2:30 in the morning after Laura Ackerson was last seen on the 13th at Walmart buying supplies, plastic, gloves, PPE, plus a reciprocating saw.
A reciprocating saw, depending on the blade you use, can rip through almost anything.
The video shows him kind of pacing back and forth and looking at the different saws. You know, you wonder, like, what's going through his mind as he's doing this.
He went in, he didn't disguise himself. He didn't try to cover up his looks, didn't try to dodge cameras.
He's very cool and calm and collected, knowing that he's got a dead body at home. I'm just buying a saw at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I am a retired reporter with the ABC station in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. I'm at Crump right now in Raleigh. I was the crime reporter. Early in pretrial motions, we started learning that the defense strategy for Amanda appeared to be to blame Grant. And for Grant, it appeared to be to blame Amanda.
They both throw each other under the bus.
They absolutely do. They both blame each other.
It's like a murderous he said, she said.
For sure. And it makes sense, right? If you're looking at it from a defense standpoint, for either one of them, you need to blame it on somebody else.
Once it became clear from defense motions that one defendant was going to blame the other, the judge said if we do them separately, they both get a fair trial.
Finally, 2 years after the murder of Laura Ackerson, Grant's trial begins.
I was an assistant district attorney, and I prosecuted Grant and Amanda Hayes.
On July 13th of 2011, Laura Ackerson woke up excited. Little did she know that within 24 hours, that man, the father of her children, would be the one responsible for her murder and disappearance.
I represented Grant Hayes. Another attorney, Will Durham, joined me. Our defense was, Grant didn't do this, there's no evidence he did this, and all the evidence suggests that Amanda is the perpetrator of the homicide.
His attorneys made this point, and they were right. Just because Grant did a gruesome deed by disposing of a body and dismembering it doesn't mean he's a murderer.
His mindset was very much, he didn't do this, they couldn't prove it, and he would be fine.
In the 2 years since the murder, Grant Hayes has appeared in court several times. Some court observers say he often looks smug. Maybe that's because he thinks he can pin the murder of Laura Ackerson on his wife.
What was Grant's demeanor like during the trial?
Disgusting. He was so nonchalant. He had no problem. He was going to beat this.
District Attorney may call your witness.
The way the prosecution decides to begin their case is to paint a portrait of Laura Ackerson. To do that, they bring in the people who know her best.
Laura loved her children more than anything, and it showed in every action that she took. I told Laura that if she wanted to fight for her kids, I would be there to support her. And she said, I'm going to fight every step of the way.
Would you state your name, please?
Siobhan Nicole Mathis. Her main priority was to get her children back before anything else. Even when she was working, she would drop whatever she had to do for her kids.
As we watched this case unfold, it was so striking to see the extraordinary lengths Grant and Amanda went to try to cover up their crime, but they left a very clear trail behind them.
Describe the range of evidence you had to deal with.
The defendant went out and tried to find the best saw blade and the best plastic sheeting and acid. We were able to use these saw blades and had a scientist from NC State compare the saw marks in Laura's body.
You can see how the blades actually match up.
These coolers really were evidence of the deliberation and thoughtfulness that the defendant had after the murder. Could you unfold that and display that for the jury?
Has some sort of bleached discoloration. Electrical tape that was purchased.
Despite this mound of evidence, we don't actually know how she was murdered.
Sure, there's 3 adults in the apartment when this happened, and 2 of them are charged with first-degree murder, and, one person's dead. It was kind of hard to prove exactly what had transpired.
I didn't have enough information with the parts that we received to determine the exact cause of death.
What was your opinion as to the cause of death?
I called it undetermined homicidal violence.
The defense lawyers are telling that jury, look, there's no murder weapon. There's no exact cause of death. You can't find this guy guilty.
The issue is who killed Laura and what happened and why. And the state really didn't have any direct evidence.
This made the defense feel like there was a chink in the armor and that they had a way to get in.
But soon, prosecutors would try to use Grant's own words against him.
I got 2 bricks by you. I can't get any more from you.
As soon as prosecutors hear this song, they're like, wow.
Despite the mountain of evidence in this case, it's still unclear who killed Laura and how. The prosecution is about to call a witness who claims to know what happened.
Here is jailhouse informant Pablo Trinidad, who can tell us what Grant said happened inside that apartment.
Pablo Trinidad met Grant at the Wake County Jail, where they were both behind bars. Pablo was being held for drug-related offenses.
He's the typical snitch witness. He was doing maybe 25 years. He was looking a way to try to get a sentence reduction.
Were y'all housed in the same area of the jail?
Yes, ma'am. We had several conversations throughout the period that we was housed together.
Pablo Trinidad got in front of that courtroom on the witness stand, and he said, Grant told me in our jail cell he and Amanda strangled Laura.
He said he placed a call to her and lured her to his apartment. And that's when him and his wife subdued her and strangled her.
With the corroborating evidence, there was this glimmer of truth in there.
Whether you want to believe what he's saying, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You can't prove it other than, this is just my word.
Your testimony is that during that 5 days, y'all developed such a special bond that he told you all his deepest, dark secrets.
That's correct.
Defense lawyers chipped away at Pablo. They knew that Pablo had snitched on other cellmates before.
And so you started thinking back, what are all the names I can give these people, didn't you?
Yes.
And you remembered Grant Hayes. He was your meal ticket, wasn't he? One of them, at least.
If you want to put in those words, that's your words, not mine.
Thank you, sir. You missed on that.
I hate to say that a jailhouse snitch was a pivotal witness in this case, but he was.
The prosecution has one last piece of evidence, and fitting for Grant, it starts with a beat.
Shay actually brought to our attention. She knew about this song that Grant had previously recorded. It was called Broomstick Rider.
Broomstick Rider, just happened to be my baby's mama. D-Shine, you got me.
The lyrics of it told what his desire to do to Laura was.
I put a price tag on your head. That's right. You must have told your attorney I got intentions on killing you. The sort of might stop me, my bullets to get you.
He wrote this song with Laura in mind. His attorney called it a parody.
The state at this time could seek to publish a song that was recovered off of the defendant's iPod.
The defense objected to the song, saying it wasn't relevant, but the judge overruled and allowed it in.
Broomstick Rider, just happened to be my baby's mama.
We both kind of peer over and see the defendant bobbing his head and sort of rocking out to the song about killing the person that he was on trial for killing, which was sort of a staggering event.
It was a song. It was a song.
Not real life.
Until it is real life. And it messes up your entire existence. It messes up who you think you are at your core. Can we take a second?
The defense calls a witness with crucial first-hand testimony that seems to support Grant's version of the story. It's Amanda's sister, Karen Berry. Remember, Amanda told her sister that she hurt Laura.
Could you please state your name for the court?
Karen Berry.
Could you tell me how you know Amanda Hayes?
She's my sister.
The defense is trying to prove Grant didn't commit this crime, that it was Amanda who committed this crime.
Our case focused on statements that Amanda made to her sister.
She came in and she told me that she had hurt Laura and that she had hurt her bad.
She says, I hurt Laura, not we hurt Laura, or he hurt Laura.
It actually benefited Grant to some degree because for Grant, his defense is Amanda did this.
Well, that was definitely a defense bombshell. But when she was pressed further, she detailed another story that happened.
I said, I want the truth out of you now. And I looked her straight in the eye and I asked her if she was covering for Grant.
How did she answer?
She looked me straight in the eye. She shook her head and went.
Well, that kind of undid everything else.
The defendant's whole case sort of backfired on them. I mean, Karen's testimony did not come out like they wanted it to come out.
In their closing arguments, each side has one last chance to convince the jury.
They're trying to give you some reason to convict him without giving you the evidence. You will not let emotion decide this case. You will not let your disgust for the things that happened in this case lead you to a verdict.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
I really wanted to communicate to the jury that the way that this murder happened was different. It was more personal.
here's the saw.
And so that's why I pulled out that saw.
This saw cut someone in half.
These are the lengths that the defendant went to try to not just get away with this murder, but also erase Laura from the world.
He is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and you should find him so. Thank you.
After 3 weeks of graphic testimony with 50 witnesses and 500 pieces of evidence, the jury goes out to deliberate. Within 2 hours, they're back with a verdict.
We, the jury, by unanimous verdict, find the defendant, Grant Ruffin Hayes III, to be guilty of murder in the first degree.
Grant Hayes was sentenced to life in prison without chance of parole.
I was happy to see that he got that, and I was happy to see that the jury felt the same way.
Glad he's not going to be part of society. It is consolation for that factor, but still doesn't bring her back.
Only a couple of months later, it's time for Amanda to face justice.
Amanda took the witness stand in her own defense.
I was just doing whatever he told me to do.
Grant did not testify, but now he's talking to me.
This is a Global Tellink prepaid call from Grant Hayes. Hello?
Hey, Grant?
Yes.
It's Juju Chang at ABC News.
This is a Global Tellink prepaid call from Grant Hayes.
After Grant's trial and conviction, many questions remain unanswered, like what happened in that apartment. So we arranged to speak with him from prison. But his claims about how Laura died doesn't really add up. Grant, can you hear me? It's Juju Chang at ABC News. Thanks so much for calling.
Thank you for picking up.
So let me ask you this. People have described you as very charming, but also manipulative and even scary.
I don't really have any defense for what people think about my character. But, you know, I'm not in prison for being a bad person. I'm in prison for killing a woman. And that didn't happen.
So you're saying you didn't kill Laura?
No, I didn't kill Laura.
So what happened that night in the apartment? How did she die?
From what I was told, when I left the room, she had asked to hold our 5-week-old baby, and Amanda had refused her. And Amanda told me that Laura had actually grabbed her by the hair and pulled her back, and that she had swung back with her elbow, hit her, dislodged herself from her, and ran into my recording studio. And when I came back in the room, Laura was laid out.
I just want to get this straight, Grant. You're blaming Laura for her own death?
Laura attacked the woman. I don't know any other way to look at it.
And so, at that point, why not call 911 to try to resuscitate her?
I was freaked out. Honestly, I was afraid. I was very, very afraid.
And then you're captured on video buying a saw. Who came up with that plan?
Well, Amanda had a plan to take Laura's body to a swamp at her sister's in Texas. And we had to get it out of the house, and the only way we could do that was if it were dismembered. So I guess you could say it was carrying out a plan that was Amanda's.
It's only been a few months since Grant's conviction, and now Amanda Hayes' trial is set to begin.
In Amanda's trial, we're still putting forward the same evidence as Grant's trial, but at the same time, we want to accent Amanda's role in everything.
The defense was trying to show Amanda she was coerced by Grant and only did what Grant said in order to protect herself and her child.
But Amanda isn't just sitting there idly. She is an active participant in everything that we see. In Texas, there was a camera trying to catch people illegally dumping or littering, and it captures exactly that.
Where are we in relation to where her sister's house is and where the body parts were found?
We're just 1.5 miles down. At my particular unit, we were in charge of environmental crimes. At that time, the camera was set up right where you see these two trees. Saw something was odd in the photos. The female that got out of the truck started unloaded boxes and jugs and started shoving them under the tree in this fence line right behind me. She was shoving it into the bushes. And then I found some boxes of acid. Seemed really strange. And I had watched the news the night before showing her court appearance in Raleigh.
And so how did you put that 2 and 2 together?
They looked the same, looked like the same lady. It was kind of really basic.
People look at that and say, she doesn't look like she's under duress. She doesn't look like she's afraid.
A picture can tell 1,000 words, but it can hide 1,000 words too.
What do you think that picture was hiding?
I think that picture shows a still frame of a woman thinking she's out in the middle of nowhere in the country and just trying to hurry up, get it over with, get it done.
And my question is, if you are driving a vehicle down the road, dumping evidence, and you are so scared, keep driving. Go to the police, go somewhere for help.
The one difference between these two trials, we found out Amanda would testify.
I think the defense had decided that if she went on the stand, she had a way of projecting innocence.
Right now we're going to begin with the North Carolina trial of a woman accused of killing the mother of her stepchildren.
Taking the stand for the first time this week, Amanda Hayes' defense was simple.
I was just doing whatever he told me to do.
Her husband made her do it.
How would you describe her? Strong, poised, well-rehearsed, but in a very sweet, almost sing-songy baby voice.
Amanda, did you kill Laura Ackerson?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you help Grant kill Laura Ackerson?
I absolutely did not.
Were you present when Grant killed Laura Ackerson?
No, sir, I was not.
Grant told me that Amanda killed Laura in self-defense, but Amanda says it began with an accident.
The picture that Amanda paints inside that apartment on the night of the murder has Laura bumping into Amanda as Amanda is holding their newborn baby, and describes Laura falling to the ground.
Amanda Hayes says she had no idea Laura Ackerson had died after Ackerson was injured at the Hayes Raleigh apartment. She says she left with the children when Ackerson fell and hit her head. I think she hurt her own credibility by telling these implausible stories about she came back after a couple of hours and had no idea that Laura had been killed and her body disposed of. You can't even do all that in a couple of hours.
This is a small apartment. Dismembering somebody takes a lot of things. Seems hard to believe that your mother didn't know.
It seems hard. It does seem hard to wrap your head around. It does.
I know you love your mom. I know you support her. Could it be that you're seeing it through rose-colored glasses?
Absolutely.
And that perhaps she was more involved than you'd like to believe?
Nobody will ever know what they don't know.
She also testified that her husband threatened to kill her if she didn't help dispose of the body.
He told me that that I had to help figure out how to get rid of this body, or else none of us were making it back to North Carolina, to Raleigh.
Did it ever seem to you like she could have also been a victim of Grant Hayes?
You know, I feel like there's a possibility that Amanda was a victim of Grant's charisma, Grant's narcissism. But beyond that, I don't believe that she was a victim of anything.
No one knows what that relationship's like, but and those pictures on Amanda's camera reflect Amanda having a good time and smiling the whole time.
Amanda Hayes is a former bit part performer who attended acting school in New York, but according to one of the prosecutors, none of her acting jobs were as good as the one she gave in this courtroom.
She is given the performance of her life.
She came across as sympathetic. She came across as, Grant's the controlling jerk, and I just got swept up in all this.
We're asking that you find her not guilty on both charges.
But would the jury believe Amanda?
We may never know what kind of verdict Amanda Hayes expected. If it was something different than what she got, her face didn't show it.
And what does Grant make of it all?
Laura's death killed me.
You're saying essentially that you're the victim in all of this.
The last night that I was with Grant, he handed me a notepad with these pages on it. Told me that it was important lyrics and that it was going to be worth money one day. But this was probably the most unsettling of the poetry that I found. I guess it's one sentence with the word murder in it 6 times. It's murder, 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 murder in my veins, murder in my soul, desertless in my heart, but to let this all go. And I think that's what just really upset me a little bit and had goosebumps when I read that for the first time after finding out about Laura.
Dramatic testimony in a first-degree murder case. Did her husband force her to cover up his crime?
It will be up to the jury to decide if Amanda Hayes was his accomplice or another victim.
It's time for Amanda to face justice. They wanted Amanda found responsible for her role in the death of Laura to the tune of first-degree murder.
It is the unanimous verdict of the jury that the defendant is guilty of murder in the second degree.
Amanda was convicted of the lesser charge of second-degree murder, and she was sentenced to between 13 and 17 years in a North Carolina prison.
They were both there. They both had the opportunity to save Laura's life. Neither one of them did it, so to me that makes them both guilty of first-degree murder.
What was your reaction to the verdict against your mom?
It was a glimpse of hope.
Why is that?
Because it wasn't life with no chance of parole.
Amanda is later tried and convicted in Texas for tampering with evidence, resulting in an additional 20 years in prison. What does justice look like for her?
I think more of it is what does justice look like for Laura and those little boys.
Who actually delivered a death blow? I don't know if Grant did it or if Amanda did it. The fact is, this husband and wife collaborated to kill this woman.
Despite being convicted for killing Laura, Grant remains steadfast in defending his image. It doesn't sound to me like you have a lot of remorse about Laura's death.
Let me tell you something about my remorse in Laura's death. Laura's death killed me, killed my family. So I think I'm the most remorseful person. I am the one who everyone points at and says, he did this. He's the bad guy. He's the monster under the bed. It's just not true.
You're saying essentially that you're the victim in all of this.
No. Amanda and Lillian were the victims.
What, if any, regrets do you have in this whole matter?
I regret that we took her body apart. Ooh. It just colors the way that people are going to see me for the rest of my life.
When you think about Laura, what comes to mind?
I talk to her. I ask her to always watch over all of the kids. And I tell her thank you for watching over me.
Today, all 3 of Grant's children are being raised by his own mother. The kids have no contact with Grant or Amanda.
Those boys were Laura's life. She was doing everything to have a better life for them. She was a wonderful mother. She loved her boys more than anything, more than her own life.
We should point out tonight that Grant Hayes has filed several appeals. All have been denied. He tells 2020 he's continuing to fight for freedom.
Meanwhile, his ex-wife, David, Amanda, is in a Texas prison serving out her conviction. She declined to be interviewed. That's our program for tonight. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Deborah Roberts.
And I'm David Muir from all of us here at ABC News in 2020. Good night.